Hello guys, welcome to Soul Fiction. So in this video, we will see the what if Naruto was the reincarnated with power of Anos Voldigod. If you enjoy these kinds of stories, don't forget to show us some love by hitting the like button and subscribing to the channel. Your support means the world to us. Now, let's dive into the story. Chapter 1. A Flicker of Power. Morning Ninja Academy grounds. Naruto Uzumaki stood at the edge of the schoolyard, arms folded behind his head as he stared up at the sky. There wasn't a single cloud in sight. The sun beat down on the training fields, reflecting off the chalky dust that had been kicked up by a half-dozen sparring sessions. Normally, Naruto's bright grin would have been plastered across his face as he chattered away with classmates or loudly challenged Sasuke to yet another fight he wasn't ready for. But today felt different. He couldn't quite put a finger on it. Something within him thrummed, a distant heartbeat echoing from the depths of his soul. The moment he'd woken up, a rush of disorienting images flooded his mind: tall obsidian spires, flickering torches, demonic sigils forming webs of energy across a black sky. The images were so vivid he'd snapped upright in bed, panting for air. A nightmare, he whispered, eyes fixating on a leaf that drifted across the academy yard. Or something else. Naruto, came a sharp voice from across the field. He turned to see Sakura Haruno waving her arms, beckoning him over with an irritable expression. He gave a light shrug and trotted in her direction, plastering a friendly, slightly mischievous grin onto his face. He had a reputation to uphold as the resident troublemaker, and maybe, just maybe, that grin would keep his classmates from seeing the unsettled swirl inside him. "You're going to be late for Iruka-sensei's lecture," Sakura huffed, tapping her foot. "Again? Hey, lighten up, Sakura-chan." Naruto made a mock bow. "I was just thinking deep thoughts." Sasuke Uchiha stood a few steps behind Sakura, coolly glancing over his shoulder at Naruto's approach. "Chan, since when do you think at all?" For a brief moment, Naruto's eyes flashed with something an uncharacteristic, potent glow. Sasuke stiffened, eyes widening. The effect vanished just as quickly, leaving Naruto scratching the back of his head and ignoring Sasuke's barb. All right. Naruto grinned, turning away. "Come on, let's get going. I don't want Iruka-sensei yelling my ear off." As the trio set off toward the academy's main hall, Sasuke lingered for a second. Watching Naruto's back, that flicker in the dobi's eyes, wasn't normal. It wasn't the usual hyperactive shine of an idiot proclaiming he'd be Hokage someday. It felt older, darker. Sasuke shook his head and followed. Academy classroom. Moments later, Iruka Umino stood at the front, chalk in hand. He'd spent the first 10 minutes re-explaining the transformation jutsu to a handful of clueless students in the front row. Every so often, his gaze wandered to Naruto, who slumped in his seat, lost in thought. "Naruto," Iruka repeated, frowning. Naruto blinked, snapping upright. Sensei." A smattering of snickers rose from the class, but Iruka's concern outweighed any annoyance. He'd known Naruto for years. The boy's energy usually danced at the surface like an endless fountain. Today, though, Naruto was eerily quiet. Iruka wasn't the only one who noticed. Ino Yamanaka, seated 2 rows behind Naruto, had been sneaking glances at him for the last hour, curiosity shining in her eyes. Iruka cleared his throat. "Would you mind demonstrating the transformation technique, since you look so eager to learn?" Naruto hopped up. "Sure thing." He marched to the front of the class, shaking off the strange hollowness in his chest. If there was one thing Naruto knew how to do, it was turn up the showmanship for a jutsu demonstration. With a deep breath, he formed the seals. Dog right pointing arrow, boar right pointing arrow, ram. His chakra surged, yet it felt different this time. A deeper, heavier power tugged beneath his usual swirl of bright orange energy. The moment he exhaled, the technique completed with surprising force. Poof! A cloud of smoke engulfed him. When it cleared, he wasn't just Iruka's perfect likeness. There was an intimidating presence emanating from the transformation, like a gravity that pulled eyes toward him, demanded attention. Murmurs filled the classroom. Did his transformation always feel like that? It's just Naruto messing around, right? Sasuke's brows furrowed. He stared at Naruto, carefully analyzing every nuance. This wasn't the typical dobi routine. Even if Naruto was a knucklehead, Sasuke had never sensed such weight behind a simple transformation jutsu. Iruka forced a chuckle. That's enough, Naruto. Naruto released the jutsu, returning to his usual self, bright orange jumpsuit and short, messy blonde hair. Beads of sweat clung to his forehead. Nay else in class had used so much chakra to transform. But he felt that swirling echo again, that sense of something ancient rattling inside. He offered Iruka a shaky grin. Guess I overdid it, huh? Iruka patted his shoulder. You did well. Now, take a seat. I need to finish this lesson. Naruto nodded and stumbled back to his desk, ignoring the suspicious stares from Sasuke, the worried glances from Sakura, and Ino's subtle smirk of interest. Break time academy corridor. Oi! Naruto! Ino's voice rang out. Naruto paused by a row of lockers, turning to see the blonde Yamanaka approaching. She brushed a strand of hair behind her ear, her gaze appraising. You looked intense earlier. That was some transformation. Naruto shrugged, leaning casually against the wall. Hey, thanks. Didn't know you were keeping tabs on me, Ino. She rolled her eyes. Don't get cocky, knucklehead. But let's just say your jutsu had a weird vibe to it. Weird. More like amazing, Naruto quipped, though a part of him felt relieved she found it interesting rather than off-putting. I'm full of surprises. Ino pressed her lips together, crossing her arms. No joke. You get into trouble so often, I'm amazed you're still a student here. But that's the thing, sometimes it looks like you're just goofing off, and other times, there's something else. Naruto's posture stiffened at her probing tone. He forced a casual laugh. You know me. One day, I'll be Hokage, so gotta impress everyone from time to time. He started to walk away, but Ino reached out, brushing her fingertips lightly across his wrist. It was a fleeting touch, but it made his pulse jump. For real, though, she said softly, curiosity warming her eyes, if you need someone to talk to, you know where to find me. Naruto froze. That was weirdly sweet for Ino. She was usually more about teasing or bragging. With a half smile, he nodded and gently pulled his arm away. Thanks, Ino. He continued down the corridor, ignoring the swirl of confusion that her concern sparked. He didn't know how to talk about these strange demonic images. How could he possibly explain something he barely understood himself? Afternoon outdoor sparring circle. During the midday break, Iruka often supervised light sparring sessions to let students blow off steam. Today was no different, but the tension felt heavier. Maybe it was the scorching sun. Or maybe it was the way Naruto seemed preoccupied, but everyone was on edge. Sasuke squared off with Kiba Inuzuka, both crouched in readiness. Kiba's Ninken, Akamaru, barked from the sidelines. The spar was quick. Sasuke deftly sidestepped Kiba's lunges and landed a clean jab to the boy's ribs. Kiba sprawled in the dust, coughing. Akamaru whimpered at his partner's defeat. Your timing was off, Sasuke said coldly. If you can't even see that, you'll never beat me. Kiba growled and stood, dusting himself off. Show off. Iruka gestured to the circle. All right, next pair Naruto, and he scanned the crowd. Well, let's see if Sakura wants to. Nah, let me fight Naruto. An unexpected voice cut in. Shikamaru Nara sighed, stepping forward with his usual lazy expression. Choji's out for the moment, so I guess I might as well. Naruto paused, feeling that swirl again. He clenched his fists. Usually, a spar with Shikamaru would be a mild annoyance. Shikamaru would do everything in his power to avoid direct confrontation, playing it strategic. But now, Naruto felt a thrum of excitement. Maybe it was the hidden demonic energy. Maybe it was an unspoken frustration that needed release. The two entered the circle. Students gathered around, curious. Start, Iruka said. Naruto rushed in, feinting a right hook that turned into a spinning low kick. Shikamaru, as lazy as he appeared, was no fool. He recognized Naruto's speed from previous scuffles. In a fluid motion, Shikamaru slid back, flipping through a single hand seal for shadow imitation jutsu. His shadow stretched out across the dust, aiming to latch onto Naruto. Naruto leapt high, flipping over the black tendril. He landed behind Shikamaru, pivoting with surprising agility. A faint grin tugged at the corner of Naruto's lips. This was exhilarating. The swirl of power in his veins flared. He felt unstoppable. Suddenly, in a move that should have been beyond his usual repertoire, Naruto conjured a swirl of energy in his palm darker than normal chakra, edged with a faint violet shimmer. It crackled like static as he thrust his hand forward, more out of reflex than calculated intent. Wah! Shikamaru's eyes widened. A sharp wave of force crashed against Shikamaru, sending him stumbling back. He managed to stay on his feet, but only just. The air itself seemed to hum in the aftermath. Iruka darted forward, alarmed. Naruto. That's enough. Blinking in confusion, Naruto stared at his own hand. The swirling, violet-charged chakra was gone, but the ground where he directed it had a small scorch mark. That definitely wasn't typical academy-level jutsu. Sorry, Naruto mumbled, standing down. He heard the startled murmurs of the other students. Shikamaru just gazed at him with a mix of awe and wariness. Troublesome, Shikamaru said at last, softly, as he rubbed his bruised shoulder. Sakura, who had been watching from the sidelines, felt a chill run through her. Naruto wasn't just being loud or competitive. Something had changed in him. Even Sasuke frowned, arms crossed over his chest in silent agitation. Iruka placed a hand on Naruto's shoulder. Call it there. Go take a breather, okay. Naruto nodded, heart pounding. He brushed past the circle of spectators, ignoring their chatter. Inside, the faint echo of that demonic presence seemed to purr in satisfaction, and that disturbed him even more than the scorching ground he'd left behind. Late afternoon academy rooftop. Climbing a hidden ladder, Naruto escaped to the rooftop. The afternoon breeze ruffled his hair, bringing a faint sense of lunch stalls from the street below. He sat on the ledge, letting his legs dangle. What is happening to me? He muttered, frowning at his palms. In the back of his mind, he thought, oh, F the Kyuubi, the nine-tailed fox sealed inside him. Had the fox's chakra mutated somehow? But this didn't feel like the fox's fiery hatred. This was colder, heavier, more ancient. Did you call for me, child? Naruto lurched up, spinning around. He'd expected to be alone, but there was no one. The voice had sounded like a million echoes condensed into a single whisper. A shiver ran down his spine. He peered cautiously around the rooftop, but there was nothing there except a few stray shingles. When he turned back to gaze at the horizon, he swore he saw a flicker of black flame in his peripheral vision here 1 second. Gone the next. This is getting too weird. Yet, despite his confusion, a sudden sense of calm washed over him. Strange images, spires, demon armies, a gleaming black throne bubbled up in his mind's eye. And for a moment, he felt a profound certainty. I've been here before, but not in this world. Footsteps on the ladder. Naruto jolted upright again, bracing for a confrontation, but it was only Iruka. The Chunin teacher emerged onto the rooftop, spotting Naruto instantly. There you are, Iruka said, his usual warmth tinged with concern. Mind if I join you? Naruto shrugged, scooting over to make room. He tried to quell the goosebumps that had erupted from that strange voice. Iruka settled himself next to Naruto on the ledge. Listen, Iruka began gently, I know. We joke about how you're always late or causing trouble, but I've never seen you lose focus the way you did today. Naruto's mouth felt dry. It's just something I can't explain, Iruka-sensei. I don't even know what's going on. Iruka nodded, choosing his words carefully. You know, it's not unusual for young shinobi to discover hidden talents or deeper reserves of chakra, especially those who have unique circumstances. He didn't say Jinchuriki, but Naruto knew. Everyone in Konoha pretended it was this big secret, but it was no secret at all. He was the container of the nine-tailed demon fox. That alone made him different. Naruto exhaled. It's more than that, and I don't think it's the fox. He paused, eyes distant. I'm getting these visions, or maybe memories. Dark castles, huge, demon armies, like something out of a story. Iruka's expression turned wary, but he forced a reassuring smile. We'll figure it out. Just be careful, Naruto. Sometimes new power can come with costs we don't see right away. Before Naruto could answer, Iruka's eyes flicked up, scanning the periphery. It was subtle, but Naruto caught the tension in his posture. With a quick shift, Iruka stood, as if shielding Naruto from view. Someone was watching. In that instant, Naruto's senses sharpened. He felt a presence at the edge of the rooftop, a swirl of quiet chakra. Then it was gone, like a breath of wind. What was that? Naruto asked, rising to his feet. Iruka pressed his lips together. I'm not sure. Could have been Anbu passing by or something. But let's head back inside. The academy day is about to end. Naruto nodded slowly, but inside, suspicion churned. He knew how to sense negative intent. He'd grown up on the streets, fending for himself. Whoever had been there was no ally. He felt it in his bones. And for some reason, they'd been interested in him specifically. Evening streets of Konoha. Class ended without further incident. Students dispersed to their homes or local haunts. Naruto found himself wandering aimlessly through the marketplace, craving the comfort of an overstuffed bowl of ramen. The sharp tang of spices drifted from food stalls, mingling with the chatter of civilians. He turned a corner and nearly bumped into Hinata Hyuga. The pale-eyed girl yelped, stepping back shyly. "En Naruto-kun," she stammered, cheeks tinged pink. "Oh, hey, Hinata." Naruto rubbed the back of his neck. "Didn't see you there." She clasped her hands together. "It's okay. I was just headed home." Naruto noticed the grocery bag in her hand, likely carrying ingredients for the Hyuga household. He offered a friendly wave. "I might go get some ramen. Wanna come?" Her eyes widened in surprise. She opened her mouth, probably to say yes, but then she hesitated, glancing at the groceries. I'm sorry. My father wants me to get back, quickly." A small pang of disappointment jabbed at Naruto's chest, though he couldn't explain why he cared. "No worries. Another time." She nodded vigorously. "Of course." They stood there for a moment, an awkward hush between them, before Hinata bowed her head politely and hurried off. Naruto scratched his cheek, shrugging. She always seemed so timid around him. But at least she never sneered or called him names. That was more than he could say for half the village. His stomach rumbled, and he picked up the pace towards Ichiraku Ramen. If there was one thing that could settle a day like this, it was a steaming hot bowl of miso ramen. Later outside Ichiraku Ramen, slurping the last of his broth, Naruto let out a contented sigh and thanked Chuki. He hopped off the stool, gave a wave to Ayame, and made his way out into the now dimly lit street. Twilight had set in, painting the sky in hues of orange and purple. As he meandered toward his shabby apartment, the earlier sensations crept back in. Dark images, a sense of authority he shouldn't possess, the near instinctual knowledge of spells he'd never been taught. Each time he tried to focus on them, they slipped away like quicksilver. Still, something in him responded to the night. A faint surge of power stirred as the sun disappeared, like the setting sun was a silent invitation for his hidden nature to stir. His footsteps slowed. Could he maybe call upon that strange energy on command? He raised his hand, concentrating, letting his normal chakra swirl in his gut. This time, he probed deeper, searching for that other wellspring. For a moment, he felt it, a low hum that expanded into a tidal wave of potential. With a surge of adrenaline, he tried to pull it forward. A flicker of violet light sparked in his palm. It crackled, almost like black lightning. Naruto's heart pounded. Whoa! Then, in an instant, it fizzled, leaving behind nothing but faint warmth. Naruto let out a breath, half disappointed, half relieved. At least now he knew it wasn't a fluke from the spar with Shikamaru. This was real. "Naruto Uzumaki." A hushed voice came from somewhere behind him. He spun, chest tight. The street was empty except for a few closed shops and lanterns. But the voice had been too clear. Someone was definitely speaking directly to him. His pulse hammered. "I am not in the mood for freaky ghost stuff, you know," he shouted, fists clenched. "Show yourself." No answer. Silence and the soft buzz of nighttime insects. Naruto swallowed. "Yeah, well whatever," he muttered, forcing his legs to move. He wasn't about to stand here shouting at empty air. Still, as he walked, he couldn't shake the sensation that something or someone was trailing him, watching from corners, slipping between shadows. It wasn't until he arrived at his apartment door that the feeling finally receded. Night Naruto's apartment. He flopped onto his worn-out bed, hands behind his head, staring up at the ceiling. His apartment was a tiny, cramped space, with dull walls and minimal furniture. But it was his. Normally, that was comfort enough. Tonight, though, no comfort would come. He tossed and turned, drifting into half-sleep. Immediately, the visions returned. A towering fortress of black stone, swirling with arcs of dark energy. In the courtyard, thousands of shadowy figures kneeled, their heads bowed in reverence. And at the center, perched on a grand throne of obsidian, was him, or rather, a figure that felt like him. Regal, eyes glowing crimson, exuding an aura that made the air tremble. They call me Anos Voldigod. Naruto lurched awake, sweat beading on his forehead, chest heaving. His heart pounded so hard he could hear the blood rushing in his ears. The name, repeated in his mind like an echo from some lost domain. Anos Voldigod. What the hell? He whispered. The stirring in his stomach made him nauseous. He pressed a palm against his abdomen, feeling the dormant warmth of the Nine Tails chakra. Strangely, the demon fox felt almost overshadowed by the other presence. Could it be that there was something even more monstrous sealed inside him? Calm down, he whispered to himself. Just calm down. He forced himself to slow his breathing, counting backward from 10 like Iruka had taught them to quell pre-exam nerves. Gradually, his muscles relaxed. The swirling images faded, his eyelids grew heavy once more. But in the back of his mind, he knew he wouldn't sleep peacefully. Not after that glimpse into whatever that was. Dawn Hokage Monument. Morning came as a relief from the restless night. Naruto, feeling stifled in his cramped apartment, decided to climb up to the Hokage Monument before most of the village woke. The crisp morning air beat at his cheeks as he scaled the carved faces of past Hokages. Once he reached his usual perch on top of the fourth Hokage's spiky head, he plopped down, letting his legs dangle over the edge. The sunrise painted the village in a gentle glow, rooftops and narrow alleys illuminated in shades of gold. A warm breeze rustled his blonde hair. Here, at least, he felt a sense of peace. The entire village stretched out beneath him. Despite how they treated him, how they whispered behind his back, he'd always felt a fierce, unwavering loyalty to Konoha. He wanted to protect it, wanted to become Hokage so he could be respected and loved. That dream never changed. But, did these new powers threaten that dream? He clenched his fists. I won't let it. Whatever this Anos Voldigod stuff is, I'm still me. Yet, as the words left his mouth, he heard the faint echo of the demon's voice, calm, commanding, regal. It whispered inside his mind, as though from a memory thousands of years old. This world is yours to shape, as you see fit. A sudden gust of wind swept over him. Naruto's eyes narrowed against it, tears forming in the corners. He couldn't quite tell if it was the wind causing them or the swirl of emotions in his chest. Who am I, really? He breathed. He heard gravel crunch behind him. Startled, he turned to see Kakashi Hatake, half of his face obscured by a mask, hands tucked lazily into his pockets. The Jonin sensei of Team 7 hadn't been assigned to them yet. Official team assignments were looming on the horizon, but Kakashi had always kept a watchful eye on the academy's most promising most troublesome students. Long night, Naruto? Kakashi asked, his tone casual yet hinting at deeper curiosity. Naruto forced a grin, standing. You could say that, Kakashi-sensei. What brings you up here so early? Kakashi strolled closer, eye crinkling in that perpetual half-smile. Just taking a walk, clearing my head. And I found you brooding, which is unusual. I wasn't brooding, Naruto snapped, voice cracking slightly. Kakashi chuckled. Right, just be careful up here, okay? A wrong step and you'll end up rolling down the fourth Hokage's nose. Naruto rolled his eyes. So methy-ing about Kakashi's presence felt settling. Despite the man's aloof demeanor, he radiated quiet confidence. For a fleeting second, Naruto wondered if this was what it felt like to be around a powerful shinobi who was actually on his side. Kakashi leaned against a rocky outcrop. Iruka said you had an interesting day at the academy yesterday. Naruto tensed, recalling the wave of violet-tinged chakra that blasted Shikamaru. Yeah, you could say that. HMPH. Kakashi's lone visible eye flicked over Naruto's posture. Sometimes, new jutsu can manifest unexpectedly if you push your chakra in ways you're not used to. Or if there's another factor at play. You talking about the Nine Tails? Naruto asked, crossing his arms. Could be. Kakashi shrugged noncommittally. But if it was just the fox, Iruka would have recognized that chakra. He didn't, which means something else might be going on. Naruto opened his mouth to respond, but a faint flicker of that demonic presence tugged at the back of his mind. He bit his lip, choosing his words carefully. If he admitted everything, would Kakashi think he was crazy? Whatever it is, Kakashi continued, just remember to keep your focus. How? Is only as good as the one wielding it. Naruto nodded, exhaling slowly. Understood. Kakashi studied him for a moment, the wind ruffling his silver hair. Then, with a half wave, he turned to leave. I have to report for morning duties. See you around, Naruto. Naruto watched him go, feeling oddly lighter. There was a sense that Kakashi wasn't judging him or afraid of him, just watchful. And maybe that was enough for now. Mid-morning perimeter of the academy. Naruto arrived late again. However, Iruka wasn't in class. Another teacher was filling in, introducing basic kunai throwing mechanics. Bored, Naruto slipped back out, deciding to train alone. If he was going to figure out these new powers, it wouldn't be by half listening to a lecture he'd heard a dozen times. He wandered to the backside of the academy grounds, where a patch of forest gave way to a small clearing. Here, training dummies were set up for older students. No one seemed to be using them right now. Perfect, Naruto muttered. He closed his eyes, inhaling the crisp morning air. Slowly, he formed a few basic hand seals: tiger right pointing arrow, ox right pointing arrow, dog, channeling normal chakra at first, letting it flow into a standard practice jutsu. But then, he concentrated deeper, trying to summon that swirl of demonic energy. The images of that dark fortress flickered behind his eyelids. Come on, where are you? A familiar rush answered his call. This time, it felt more controlled, not a wild surge, but a steady, humming current. A grin pulled at Naruto's lips. He pressed his palms together, focusing on the target dummy ahead. Violet sparks danced across his fingertips. He exhaled. Here goes nothing. Demon. Something. TCH. Guess I'll just wing it. A compressed bullet of black-purple energy blasted from his palm, ripping across the clearing. The bark of nearby trees splintered in its wake before it struck the dummy. The wooden figure exploded into shards, the air reverberating with the impact. Birds scattered from the treetops in panic. Naruto's jaw fell open. That's awesome. He flexed his hands, adrenaline pumping. The technique had no official name, but it was incredible raw destructive power reminiscent of a high-level jutsu. Yet he'd performed it with minimal effort. The weight of it lingered in the air, causing dust to swirl. But how the heck did I just do that? Before he could process further, a voice interrupted from behind, making him whirl around. Well, that was some show you just put on. Danzo Shimura stepped out from the shadow of a large oak, cane in hand, bandaged right eye as lifeless in expression as ever. Naruto stiffened, unsettled by the older man's presence. He'd seen Danzo around the village, always looking grim, accompanied by silent guards. Naruto forced a cheeky grin. Didn't know you were a fan, old man. Quote. Danzo didn't smile. Such immense chakra. Something tells me you are no ordinary academy student. Naruto's instincts screamed danger. He shifted his weight, ready to bolt or fight if he had to. So what if I'm not ordinary? I'm still gonna be Hokage one day. The corners of Danzo's mouth twitched. Bold words from a boy who knows nothing of the true darkness out there. Power can protect, yes, but it can also corrupt. Naruto's fists clenched, recalling Iruka's warning. Who are you to lecture me about corruption? Danzo paused, tapping his cane lightly on the ground. I represent a portion of Konoha that is concerned about the safety of our village. And if a new power emerges, something unpredictable, we have to be vigilant. Naruto felt the demon. Icy energy coil in his chest like a spring. He didn't like Danzo's tone, the implicit threat lacing each word. So, you're here to monitor me, huh? Danzo inclined his head slightly. Only to ensure no harm comes to Konoha. One day you may come to appreciate our vigilance. For now, he turned, his cane scraping against the ground. I suggest you keep your newfound powers discreet, Naruto Uzumaki. Not everyone will be as patient as I am. With that, Danzo melted back into the shadows, leaving Naruto's heart pounding. Anger mingled with unease. He hated feeling cornered or interrogated. But more than that, Danzo's parting words left him with an aftertaste of dread. Not everyone will be as patient. That meant there were others who might outright attack him. Breathing heavily, Naruto glanced at the destruction he'd caused. The training dummy was obliterated, and half the trunk of a large tree was scorched black. He swallowed hard. There was no easy going back to normal from this. His power, Anos's power, was too big, too conspicuous. Midday Ichiraku ramen again. Though he'd planned on heading back to class, Naruto's mind buzzed with anxious thoughts about Danzo. So, he sought refuge in the place he trusted most, Ichiraku ramen. Tsuki gave him a cheerful greeting, and Naruto took a seat, ordering a simple bowl of miso ramen. Between slurps, he stared into the steaming broth, swirling his chopsticks aimlessly. The old man's words replayed in his head. He had no illusions. Danzo was a powerful figure behind the scenes. If he decided Naruto was a threat, he might try to twist T. He third Hokage's arm or manipulate the village's higher-ups. Naruto quietly cursed under his breath. He was used to being disliked, but this was on another level. All gloom and no grin. That's not the Naruto I know, came a familiar female voice. Naruto glanced over to see Ino sliding onto the neighboring stool, flashing him a cautious smile. Hey, Ino. He tried to muster his usual boisterous tone. What are you doing here? Aren't you supposed to be in class? She shrugged. Had a break. Figured I'd see if you were sulking around. Looks like I guessed right. Naruto frowned. I'm not sulking. Ino ordered a small bowl of ramen and studied him out of the corner of her eye. You've been acting different lately, less loud knucklehead, and more brooding mystery guy. I'm not sure which version I like better. But it's definitely something new. He swirled his chopsticks through the broth, not meeting her gaze. Just have a lot on my mind, that's all. She stayed quiet for a moment, letting him gather his thoughts. After their bowls arrived, she nudged him playfully. If you ever want to talk, I'm a good listener, you know. Plus, I can probably read your mind if I wanted. Naruto choked on a noodle. You can't do that outside your clan technique, can you? Ino smirked. Relax, I won't. Without permission, anyway. I'm just offering an ear, not trying to invade your privacy. He hesitated, remembering her kind gesture in the hallway. A small part of him yearned to confide in someone. But how could he explain these demonic flashes, this intangible sense of overwhelming authority, without sounding like a complete lunatic? Instead, he gave a half grin. Thanks, Ino. Appreciate it. She gave his shoulder a light punch. You'd better. Now, if you're done being mopey, I was thinking maybe after class ends, we can spar. My clan focuses on mind jutsu, but I could use some practice in close combat. Naruto's eyes lit up at the prospect of an informal match. Hey, yeah, that'd be cool. I could show you some of my new moves. He paused, realizing with a flicker of worry that new moves might blow up another training dummy, or her. Though, maybe I should, tone it down a notch. Ino arched an eyebrow. Oh, afraid you'll lose if you don't go all out. Naruto's grin returned, more genuine this time. Just don't want to break the hearts of your fan club when I send you flying. She snorted, a playful look in her eyes. Big words. You'd better back them up. As they bantered, Naruto felt a little of the tension ease off his shoulders. Maybe he could handle this, one day at a time. Late afternoon academy training field. Naruto and Ino had arranged a quick spar after classes. She arrived first, tying her long blonde hair in a high ponytail, stepping into the grassy clearing. The sun was beginning its descent, casting elongated shadows across the field. Nearby, a few other students, Sakura, Choji, Shikamaru, gathered to watch. Naruto rolled his neck, bouncing on the balls of his feet. Ready, Ino smirked. Always. They circled each other. Naruto kept his demonic chakra on a tight leash, determined to rely only on his standard academy-level skill and cunning for this. He dashed forward with a left jab. Ino deflected with her forearm, pivoting gracefully. She spun, aiming a kick at his midsection. He blocked with a raised knee, the impact sending a minor jolt up his thigh. Not bad, he teased, sliding back. I thought the Yamanaka clan just stood around and shot mind jutsu all day. She rolled her eyes. Shows how little you pay attention in class. We have to train physically, too. Or we'll get pummeled. She lunged again, this time fainting high before dropping low for a leg sweep. Naruto, quick on his feet, leapt to avoid it. His body responded more smoothly than he expected, like his reflexes had been honed by an otherworldly force. He landed behind her, hooking an arm around her waist in a mock tackle. For a split second, they froze, aware of how close they were. Ino's cheeks flushed as she tried to twist free. Naruto also felt a sudden rush of heat, an odd moment of awareness that Ino was, in fact, quite attractive. The notion startled him. He'd never been so forward with these thoughts before. But something about his new confidence, or demonic heritage, made him bolder. Gotcha, he whispered, smirking. Not yet, Ino snarled, hooking her foot around his ankle. She leveraged her weight, pulling him off balance. They tumbled together onto the grass, landing in a heap. Choji winced. Whoa, that's gotta hurt. Sakura folded her arms, cheeks slightly pink. She called out, Naruto, stop goofing around and get up. Naruto coughed, pinned awkwardly by Ino's knee. Okay, you win. Ino rolled off him, panting. She flopped onto her back, chest heaving. Naruto sat up, rubbing the back of his neck. They locked eyes and broke into laughter. Not half bad, Ino said between breaths. Maybe next time, you can actually show me your fancy new technique. He grimaced, recalling the violent destructive force he'd unleashed earlier. Maybe. I gotta make sure it's safe for, friendly sparring. Sakura, who had wandered closer, eyed Naruto skeptically. You've been acting weird, Naruto. One day you're blowing up training dummies, the next day you're wrestling Ino. Are you sure everything's okay? Naruto forced a light-hearted grin. Just training, Sakura-chan. Gotta keep up with Sasuke, right? Sakura sighed, apparently unconvinced but not pressing further. Shikamaru, half bored, commented under his breath, if this is how you train now, Naruto. Remind me to steer clear. You're a walking explosion waiting to happen. Naruto let out a sheepish chuckle, letting the comment roll off him. He'd rather they joke about it than treat him like some monster. Inside, though, he knew that what Shikamaru said held a kernel of truth. Sunset empty classroom. As the sun dipped below the horizon, Naruto found himself in an empty academy classroom. Rummaging for forgotten items, Iruka had asked him to help tidy up, probably as a subtle way to keep an eye on him. The last rays of orange sunlight streamed in through the windows, giving the place a warm glow. He stacked a few stray textbooks, yawning. It had been a long, confusing day. So much had happened, and yet, he felt no closer to understanding the source of his new powers. His thoughts wandered back to the flicker of violet energy, the regal vision of that demon throne. Anos Voldigod. The name alone felt weighty, charged with significance. Naruto swallowed hard. The realization he was a reincarnation of something this powerful, it was both thrilling and terrifying. Could it overshadow the Nine Tails? Could it overshadow him? You're late, as usual. Came Iruka's gentle tease from the doorway. Naruto turned, giving a half smile. Just finished cleaning up, Iruka-sensei. I used some of the shadow clones to do it faster. Hope that's allowed. Iruka nodded approvingly, stepping inside. That's perfectly fine. In fact, that's the sort of ingenuity I'd expect from someone who wants to be Hokage someday. Naruto felt a swell of pride, but it was quickly overshadowed by guilt. Iruka was putting his trust in him, seeing him as that bright-eyed kid with a big dream. Meanwhile, Naruto was juggling a secret that could threaten the entire village if it spiraled out of control. Sensei, Naruto began hesitantly, is there a way to know if something is sealed inside me aside from the fox? Iruka paused, eyebrows knitting together. He leaned against the desk, crossing his arms. The fourth Hokage's seal is specific for the Nine Tails. If you suspect something else, usually, the Hokage or a sealing specialist like Jiraiya-sama would detect it. Why do you ask? Naruto shrugged, feigning casualness. No reason, just curious. Iruka's gaze lingered on Naruto's face, as if weighing whether to press. Eventually, he decided against it. Well, if you ever feel uneasy, you can come to me or the third Hokage. We won't turn you away. Naruto forced a grin, nodding. Thanks. With that, Iruka grabbed the last of the stray papers and headed out, leaving Naruto alone in the quiet classroom. The silence pressed in. He heard his own breath and the faint hum of distant voices in the corridor. Slowly, Naruto exhaled, fists clenching and unclenching. He had to get stronger, fast. If Danzo was sniffing around, if the Ninetales was overshadowed by this new power, if someone else had truly been watching him from the rooftops, he needed control. He needed answers. Nightfall Hokage Monument once more. Unable to find peace, Naruto ended up back at the monument. The chill night air nipped at his skin. Below, Konoha's lanterns glimmered like fireflies in the darkness. He walked along the carved stone crest, eventually stopping at the edge. Closing his eyes, he let the night wind caress him. For a moment, he tried to picture the monstrous fortress again. The kneeling demons, the throne. An undercurrent of dread mixed with raw excitement coursed through him. If I really am some reincarnation of a demon king Anos Voldigod, what does that even mean? His heart thundered. The name reverberated in his chest like an old friend he'd long forgotten, now beckoning him to reclaim what was once his. It was unsettling, yet part of him yearned for it. He took a steadying breath, remembering everything he'd ever fought for in this world. Acknowledgement, friendship, the dream to become Hokage. Could he pursue those dreams while also accepting this demonic heritage? Would the village reject him even more if they knew the truth? He crouched, placing a hand on the stone. No matter what, I'm not giving up. A swirl of violet energy flickered in his eyes, reflecting off the monument's smooth surface. The determination in his voice carried an undercurrent of power, a resonance that seemed to echo across the silent night. I'll protect Konoha my way. If I have to unleash this power to do it, then so be it. Somewhere in the depths of his soul, a deeper voice, Anos's voice, rumbled in agreement. This domain is yours to shape. Let none stand in your way. Naruto grinned, teeth flashing in the moonlight. For a moment, he felt unstoppable, like the entire village lay in the palm of his hand. Then he shook his head, snapping himself back to reality. He stood up, letting the wind whip at his jacket. He stared at the sleeping village. Strangely enough, he felt a warm sense of protectiveness surge in his chest. Even if a demon's spirit resided within him, Naruto was still Naruto, and no one could take that from him. End of Chapter 1. Chapter 2. Wave Mission Revelation. Morning light spilled through wide windows in the Hokage's office, illuminating 3 fresh genin standing side by side: Naruto Uzumaki, Sakura Haruno, and Sasuke Uchiha. Naruto tried to keep a straight face, but excitement buzzed under his skin. He had been waiting for team assignments for ages. Now, Team 7 was official. On the opposite side of the desk sat the third Hokage, pipe in hand, quietly observing the trio. Kakashi Hatake lounged near the window, arms crossed, mask covering all but a single sleepy eye. "I'll be your squad leader," he announced in his casual drawl. "Try not to get yourselves killed before lunch." Naruto offered a cheeky grin. "Don't worry, sensei. With me around, we'll complete every mission, no problem." Sasuke shot Naruto a derisive glance. Sakura sighed. "Naruto, calm down. You're too loud for this office." The third Hokage cleared his throat. "Team 7, I have a C-rank mission for you. You'll be escorting a bridge builder back to the Land of Waves. It should be relatively straightforward. Any questions?" Naruto was about to proclaim that he wanted something more exciting, but Kakashi's pointed look told him to stand down. He settled for a determined nod. "No questions. We've got this." A slight smile curved at the Hokage's lips. "Very well. Send Tazuna in." Moments later, an older man with graying hair, a scruffy beard, and a bottle of sake in hand stumbled into the office. He took one look at Team 7 and grimaced. "These kids are my escorts. They look like they just graduated from diapers." Naruto bristled. "Hey, old man, you'll be eating those words once you see us in action." Kakashi tapped Naruto on the head. "Let's not threaten our client. Tazuna, we'll keep you safe. We're setting out immediately." Tazuna shrugged, muttering something about budget ninjas, and followed Kakashi out. Naruto glowered at the older man's dismissive attitude. If it hadn't been for the strange rush of demonic confidence swirling in his chest, he might have snapped back more aggressively. Instead, he wore a irk that promised he'd prove Tazuna wrong. Late morning Konoha's outskirts. Team 7 strode down a dirt path that wound away from the village gates. Lush trees lined the road, rustling in the breeze. Tazuna trudged ahead, occasionally glancing backward, as if unsure these 3 genin and 1 masked jonin could protect him. Naruto hung at the rear, scanning the surroundings with heightened awareness. In the past, he might have just daydreamed or joked, but now, there was something else, a hum of vigilance that felt almost predatory. Kakashi ambled at a relaxed pace, but Naruto caught him giving subtle signals rays of 2 fingers. A shift of his stance likely to Sasuke and Sakura, telling them to watch for ambushes. Naruto felt the same tension prickling through him, as though he knew danger would come. He wasn't sure if it was a normal shinobi instinct or the Demon King's lingering presence that quickened his heartbeat. He took a moment to fall into step with Sakura. She was quiet, fiddling with the straps of her kunai pouch. When she noticed Naruto at her side, she gave a tentative smile. "Nervous?" he asked, keeping his voice low. "A little." She pushed pink strands of hair behind her ear. "It's our first real mission outside the village. And after what happened with you at the academy, it's like, we never know what to expect." He winced internally at the reminder of his odd chakra surges. "I'm in control," he said quietly. "We'll be okay. Just watch out for Sasuke's big head." Sakura almost laughed but covered it with a cough. "I'm more worried about you suddenly blowing something up." "I'll be careful," he murmured, glancing away. He didn't want to admit how that power pulled at him. Instead, he tried to lighten the mood. "Besides, I've got to show you who the top dog on this team is." Sakura gave him a playful shove. "In your dreams, Naruto." The tension dissolved for a moment, replaced by comfortable banter that made Naruto feel a bit more like himself. Behind them, Sasuke walked in silence, seemingly absorbed in scanning the environment. Occasionally, he'd cut a look at Naruto, as though measuring him. Naruto tried to ignore it. Sasuke was his own special brand of prickly. They continued in this formation until the midday sun stood high overhead, warming the dusty road. Then, in the distance, Naruto spotted a puddle. Strange there hadn't been any rain for days. He tensed, instincts flaring. There was an abnormal swirl of chakra near the puddle's surface. Naruto glanced at Kakashi, who gave a slight nod, indicating he'd noticed too. Sure enough, the moment they crossed near the puddle, 2 figures erupted, chain scythes flashing. They lunged at Kakashi first, wrapping the chain around him. With a savage pull, they tore him apart, or so it seemed. Blood splattered. Naruto's eyes went wide in shock. "Sensei!" Sakura cried, horrified. "And no." Tazuna stumbled back, eyes darting wildly. Before Naruto could even react, the masked attackers whirled on him. Time felt like it slowed. The chain glinted in the sunlight, swinging toward Naruto's chest. Without thinking, he channeled that deep, thrumming energy. A faint violet glow enveloped his hand as he raised it in front of him. The chain smashed against an invisible barrier, sparking with fierce energy. The attacker's eyes widened. The blow was halted inches from Naruto's body. Sasuke seized the chance, leaping in with a spinning kick that knocked 1 masked ninja aside. Naruto inhaled sharply, letting adrenaline flood his veins. He formed a single hand sign. Though he wanted to avoid revealing too much, the threat to Tazuna was real. He released a fraction of that dark power. A shockwave rippled out from his palm, throwing the second masked ninja off balance. The man crashed into a tree trunk, coughing. In a blink, Kakashi appeared behind them, completely unharmed. "Good job, team," he drawled, subduing both attackers with practiced ease. He cast a glance at the blood splattered ground where he'd been, torn apart. "That was just a replacement. I wanted to see how you'd handle it." Naruto's heart still pounded. He dropped his arm, feeling the last embers of that demonic barrier fade. Sasuke glared at him, breath a little ragged. Sakura rushed to Tazuna, trying to steady him. The masked ninja squirmed. Kakashi held them in a tight grip. Why are shinobi from the Hid Den missed attacking a simple bridge builder? He mused aloud. Tazuna looked away guiltily, wringing his hands. "I might have lied about the nature of this mission." He swallowed. "There's a man named Gato who wants me dead. I couldn't afford a higher ranked escort. So I tricked the Hokage into assigning me AC rank." Sakura's face paled. We could have died because you lied. Chizuna bowed his head. I'm sorry, but my country is impoverished. If my bridge doesn't get built, Gato will keep strangling the land of waves. Kakashi sighed. We'll discuss this in a moment. He turned to the two subdued shinobi. Who sent you? They spat at him, refusing to speak. Kakashi knocked them unconscious with a swift chop. He secured them to a nearby tree using ninja wire. Then, turning back to Chizuna, he said, this changes things. But leaving now would mean returning you to the village. That won't solve your problem. My gut says we see this mission through unless my team objects. Sasuke huffed. I'm not backing out. His dark eyes flickered to Naruto, as if to say, I won't be overshadowed by you. Sakura hesitated, but a determined expression set in. I don't like being lied to, but I won't abandon a helpless man. Let's finish this. Quote. Kakashi's gaze fell on Naruto, who simply gave a firm nod. I won't run. Chizuna exhaled with relief. Thank you. With the immediate danger subdued, they pressed on. Naruto tried to ignore the slight trembling in his fingers, the after effects of that demonic barrier. He was grateful he hadn't needed to unleash anything bigger. He'd promised himself not to go overboard around his teammates. Still, part of him was exhilarated, proud that he'd protected them. That rush of authority felt natural, like it had always been in his bones. Afternoon edge of the land of waves. They reached a small dock where a ragged fisherman awaited, squinting at the newcomers. He guided them onto his weather-beaten boat, instructing them to be silent so Gato's patrols wouldn't notice their arrival. Naruto took a seat near the prow, scanning the gray-blue water. A thick mist clung to the horizon, reminiscent of the hidden village the demon brothers hailed from. Kakashi's voice dropped to a murmur. Everyone, stay alert. We don't know who else might be lying in wait. Chizuna coughed nervously. Once we land, there's a short hike through the forest before we reach my home. My daughter, Tsunami, will let us rest. Then I can show you the bridge site. Naruto nodded, the hush of the boat ride weighing on his thoughts. He looked over at Sakura, who peered into the mist with uncertainty, and Sasuke, who had that perpetual scowl. Kakashi stood at the boat's stern, watchful, as though expecting another ambush at any moment. The fisherman kept the motor low, the boat gliding across the water. The air smelled of salt and damp wood. Naruto closed his eyes briefly, remembering that swirl of dark power he'd summoned. It had felt effortless, more so than even the standard ninjutsu he'd trained in at the academy. The fact that he'd conjured a barrier with no seals was unnerving. Anos, that name whispered. Supreme Demon King, could that truly be a part of him? He tried to shake off the thought as they approached the shoreline. The fisherman cut the engine and waved them off with a terse, good luck. Chizuna led them into a dense forest trail. Fog clung to the branches, and every leaf glistened with moisture. Naruto's sandals squished in muddy patches as they progressed deeper into the land of waves. An unnatural tension gathered in the air. Naruto noticed Kakashi's posture stiffen. Sasuke flexed his fingers near the handle of a kunai, clearly sensing something too. The hair on Naruto's neck prickled. Suddenly, Kakashi shouted, "Duck!" They all threw themselves to the ground. Just as a massive blade spun through the air, slicing the tops off nearby tree trunks. The sword embedded itself in a thick trunk, vibrating from the impact. A figure appeared, perched on the hilt shirtless. Bandaged-mouthed, eyes cold and calculating. Well, the man said. Kakashi of the Sharingan. Didn't expect to see you here. Kakashi's single eye narrowed. Momochi Zabuza, ex-mist ninja. Sakura's knuckles widened around a kunai. Sasuke's eyes flitted between Zabuza and Kakashi, analyzing potential openings. Naruto felt that thrumming in his chest again, the swirl of demonic power stirring. Demanding to be used. Chizuna stepped back, trembling. That's him, the demon of the hidden mist. Before Naruto could respond, Zabuza vanished, reappearing atop the water of a small clearing pond nearby. Kakashi motioned for everyone to spread out. Naruto, Sakura, protect Chizuna. Sasuke, with me. Naruto moved protectively in front of Chizuna, thoughts racing. If Zabuza was as dangerous as rumors suggested, Kakashi might need backup. But Kakashi was a Jonin, he could handle it, right? Then again, maybe Naruto's new power could tip the scales. The question was whether he should risk exposing it more than he already had. The air grew thick as Zabuza formed hand seals, culminating in a silent swirl of mist. The technique spread rapidly, blanketing the area. Visibility dropped to mere feet. Sakura clutched Tizuna's sleeve. He's going to pick us off one by one in this fog. Naruto's eyes flickered with faint violet. He extended his senses beyond normal chakra detection. A bizarre clarity settled over him. He could sense malicious intent in the mist, almost see its shape. That had to be part of the demon heritage, something that gave him heightened perception. He grinned despite the danger. Kakashi is mine, Zabuza's voice echoed, distorted by the mist. Sasuke tensed. Where is he? A flicker of movement. Steel glinted. In a heartbeat, Zabuza appeared behind Kakashi. Swinging his giant blade, Kakashi dodged with inhuman flexibility, dropping low to avoid decapitation. Sasuke leapt forward, launching a barrage of shuriken at Zabuza, forcing him back a step. Zabuza landed lightly on the water's surface again. Quick, but not quick enough. He launched into another flurry of seals. Water whipped up into a swirling sphere around his figure. Kakashi mirrored the seals, copying them perfectly with his Sharingan. Both men ended on the final seal simultaneously. Two monstrous water dragons erupted, crashing against each other midair. The impact drenched the clearing in waves. Naruto shielded Tizuna from the spray, blinking away droplets. Sasuke, stay on guard, he shouted. Zabuza's gaze cut toward Naruto, as if sensing something unusual about him. A predatory grin twisted under his bandages. That boy, there's something more than 9 tails in his chakra. Naruto froze. The mention of the fox sent a chill through him. He noticed, in the corner of his vision, he saw Kakashi tense as well, but the Jonin's immediate focus was on surviving Zabuza's attacks. Zabuza vanished into the mist again. Silence enveloped them. Naruto hunched, listening intently. A split second later, he felt a presence behind Tizuna. Without warning, he spun, forging a crude shape of violet-tinged chakra in his hand. No time for normal ninjutsu. He med it forward just as Zabuza's sword came slicing down. A flash of dark energy collided with the steel, creating a shockwave that rattled the surrounding trees. The blade skidded off the barrier, sparks flying. Zabuza leapt back, eyes narrowing. He looked at Naruto with genuine surprise. That's not the fox's chakra, he growled. Naruto kept his stance low, arms trembling from the exertion. That barrier was more powerful than anything he'd done before, and it had manifested almost by instinct. Kakashi seized the opportunity, surging in from the flank, kunai aimed at Zabuza's ribs. Zabuza barely twisted away, the kunai grazing his side. A new wave of mist billowed, thicker than before. Naruto's lungs tightened as visibility dropped to nearly zero. Water dripped from the trees, each plop echoing in the oppressive silence. Tizuna's breath came shallow and quick. Sakura glanced around, eyes wide, trying to track the ghostly shapes in the fog. Kakashi's voice rang out, low. Sasuke, stay close. Naruto, keep protecting Tizuna and Sakura. This fight might get ugly. Zabuza's mocking chuckle reverberated. I'll kill the bridge builder first. Then I'll deal with you, copy Nin. Naruto clenched his jaw. He wasn't going to let Tizuna die. Surging forward in the haze, he tried to pinpoint Zabuza's presence. That demonic perception flared. He glimpsed a faint silhouette gliding along the perimeter of the clearing. Waiting for an opening. Too fast. Zabuza seemed to slip in and out of the mist effortlessly. Suddenly, Sasuke yelled, he's here. A flicker of movement at the edge of Naruto's vision. Zabuza lunged from behind a tree, sword aimed for Tizuna. Naruto didn't hesitate. He formed a half-ram seal, summoning every ounce of normal chakra he could muster. Shadow Clone Jutsu. 3 clones appeared in a flash of smoke, each hurling themselves in front of Tizuna. The sword cut through them, dispersing the clones in bursts of chakra. But those precious seconds let Naruto leap between Tizuna and Zabuza. He channeled that demonic energy again, letting it fuse with a standard chakra strike. His palm connected with Zabuza's chest, sending a concussive blast that forced the missing Nin to stumble. Zabuza coughed, eyes widening with momentary pain. You brat. Naruto felt a surge of triumph. This power was unstoppable. But Zabuza recovered swiftly. He slammed his palm against Naruto's chest, knocking him back. Before Naruto could regain his footing, Zabuza spun, blade raised for a killing blow. At the same instant, Kakashi appeared behind Zabuza, jamming a kunai at the base of his neck. "Move, and you die," Kakashi hissed. The tip of the kunai nicked Zabuza's skin. Zabuza froze. Blood trickled down his bandaged neck, mixing with the misty air. Naruto stumbled back, chest heaving. His heart pounded, adrenaline coursing. He exchanged a glance with Kakashi, who gave him a nearly imperceptible nod acknowledgement that Naruto's quick action saved Tazuna's life. Sasuke landed a few feet away, panting. "Don't let him get away, Kakashi." Zabuza clenched his teeth. "You're good, but this isn't over." A Senbon whistle cut through the air. Zabuza's eyes went wide, and he toppled forward, seemingly dead. Kakashi pulled his kunai away at the last second, startled. A masked figure landed gracefully on the water's surface, wearing a hunter nin mask from the hidden mist. "Thank you for capturing Zabuza. I've been hunting him for a long time." The masked ninja collected Zabuza's limp body. "I'll dispose of him." Naruto stared in confusion. "Wait, who are?" The masked ninja bowed politely, then vanished with Zabuza in a blur of speed. Kakashi stood there, kunai in hand, breathing heavily. Something about this felt off. A hunter nin, possibly, but that was too convenient. His gaze drifted to where the masked figure had disappeared. "I have a suspicion Zabuza isn't really dead." Naruto frowned, but that Senbon went straight into his neck. It was a precision strike meant to imitate death. Kakashi said, "Zabuza may still be alive. And if so, he'll come for us again." He turned to Tazuna, who looked shaken but unharmed. "For now, let's get you somewhere safe. We'll figure out the rest soon." Early evening Tazuna's house. They arrived at Tazuna's modest home, a wooden structure perched near the shore. Inside, the air smelled faintly of rice and fish stew. Tazuna's daughter, Tsunami, greeted them with relief, offering them warm towels and a place to rest. Her young son, Inari, peeked around a corner, eyes brimming with distrust. Kakashi collapsed onto a tatami mat, wincing. "Looks like I overexerted myself with those water jutsu. Need some rest." Sakura moved closer. "Are you okay, sensei?" He waved her off with a reassuring gesture. "Just chakra fatigue. I'll recover." Naruto took a seat near the low dining table, still feeling the adrenaline in his veins. Sasuke leaned against a wall, arms crossed, silent as usual. Tazuna explained the situation in more detail. Gato's stranglehold on trade routes, how the bridge was the only hope for the land of waves to break free from oppression. When Tazuna finished, Naruto's fist clenched on the table. "Then there's no way we're leaving. If Gato's hired people like Zabuza, that means the mission is more dangerous than we thought, but we're not backing down." Sasuke scoffed quietly, but there was a flicker of agreement in his eyes. Sakura nodded solemnly. Kakashi gave a soft sigh. "All right, we'll see this through." Inari glared at Naruto from the corner. "Why bother? You'll just get killed by Gato's men. This world doesn't care about heroes." Naruto bristled. "We're not here to be heroes. We're here to protect your grandpa and finish that bridge." "That's enough." Inari muttered something under his breath about pointless bravado and stalked off. Naruto stared after him, feeling a pang of sympathy despite the boy's hostile attitude. He knew what it was like to feel hopeless. Still, he wasn't about to let negativity dampen his own resolve. Nightfall. Tazuna's house, rooftop. Unable to sleep, Naruto snuck out onto the rooftop. The moon cast a pale glow over the gentle waves. He looked out at the half-finished bridge in the distance, its silhouette looming in the mist. The events of the day replayed in his mind. The demon brothers, the near-deadly clash with Zabuza, the masked ninja's intervention. Most of all, he recalled the demonic power that surfaced in moments of crisis. Sakura's quiet footsteps approached from behind. "Naruto." He glanced back. She stepped onto the roof, arms wrapped around herself. "Couldn't sleep either?" he asked softly. She shook her head, too wound up and worried. Zabuza was terrifying. Naruto patted a spot beside him. She sat, gazing at the moon's reflection on the water. He hesitated, wanting to reassure her but also wrestling with his own uncertainty. Finally, he just said, "We'll protect Tazuna, no matter what. Kakashi-sensei's strong, and we've seen how to handle Zabuza once." Sakura nodded. "Right. Still, the fact you keep pulling off these barrier jutsu or whatever that was, where'd you learn that?" He tensed. It just came to me. Maybe it's a latent ability. I can't really explain. She frowned, scrutinizing him. Just don't get reckless. I don't want any of my teammates dying. Something in the gentle concern of her voice made his chest tighten. I won't. I promise. Sakura managed a small smile. Okay, let's try to get some sleep. We'll need it. She slipped back inside, leaving Naruto alone again. He exhaled, staring up at the sky. The demon fox was one thing, but this other presence felt even more potent. Zabuza had recognized it wasn't just the fox. Sooner or later, Naruto would have to come clean to Kaka. Or figure out how to handle it on his own. Next morning, training in the clearing. Kakashi insisted that while Tazuna continued his work on the bridge, Team 7 should train to prepare for Zabuza's return. They found a secluded clearing near the river, ringed by thick trees. Kakashi, looking a bit recovered from his chakra fatigue, explained they'd be practicing tree walking exercises, chakra control at its finest. Sasuke glowered. We already know how to climb trees, sensei. Kakashi wagged a finger. Not like this. He demonstrated walking up the trunk of a tall tree, one foot over the other, defying gravity with perfect chakra balance. Mastering this will help you conserve chakra in battle and fight more efficiently. Naruto remembered doing a bit of this at the academy, but never with such precision. He breathed in, ignoring the swirl of demonic power. He wanted to master normal shinobi skills first. Channeling chakra to the soles of his feet, he approached a tree. With a quick run, he planted his foot on the bark and slid off, landing on his butt. Sasuke chuckled under his breath before making his own attempt. He managed a few steps up the trunk before losing balance and hopping back. Sakura, to everyone's surprise, quickly made it halfway up the tree on her first try. Naruto gritted his teeth, determined not to be outdone. For hours, they practiced running at the trees, focusing their chakra. Adjusting mid-step when the bark cracked. Sakura's finer control gave her an edge, but Sasuke's competitive drive quickly closed the gap. Naruto found himself having to ignore the tempting surge of demonic power that kept trying to bleed into his normal chakra. Each time he felt that buzzing edge, he forced it down, wanting to improve by his own means. Eventually, they broke for lunch near the riverbank. Sakura was visibly tired, leaning against a rock. Sasuke was perched on a branch overhead, arms folded. Naruto scarfed down some rice balls provided by Tsunami, frustration burning in his eyes. He thought back to the nights he'd spent channeling that other power. With it, he could probably cheat this exercise, balancing perfect chakra or outright ignoring gravity. But that felt wrong. He refused to rely on an unknown demon heritage for basics. He wanted to stand equal on normal ninja terms, especially when Sasuke was working this hard. Kakashi's gaze lingered on Naruto. You're pushing yourself quite hard, he remarked quietly. Naruto shrugged, wiping sweat from his brow. I have to if I'm gonna surpass that bastard with the sword. Kakashi gave a half smile. Good, keep at it. Something in his tone told Naruto that Kakashi suspected there was more to Naruto's struggle than just wanting to beat Zabuza. But the Jonin didn't press. Instead, he let them rest and then resumed practice. For the next couple of hours, they repeated the cycle tree climbing, analyzing mistakes, trying again. As dusk approached, Naruto finally managed to reach the top of the tallest tree. Planting his foot on a firm branch, he pumped his fist in triumph. Sasuke, on a neighboring tree, glanced sideways, acknowledging Naruto's accomplishment with a curt nod. Below, Sakura clapped. Nice work. Naruto jumped down in a graceful flip, landing next to Kakashi. The sensei looked pleased. You've all made progress today. Rest up tonight. If Zabuza comes tomorrow, we need to be ready. Night to Zuna's house, dinner. The household was livelier now that the team had proven their dedication. Tazuna cracked jokes, praising them for how quickly the bridge constructio N was progressing under Team 7's vigilant watch. Even Inari ventured out from his sullen shell a bit, though he still refused to meet Naruto's eyes. Sakura and Tsunami chatted in the kitchen, while Sasuke lingered outside. Probably thinking deep, broody thoughts under the moonlight. Naruto sat in the living area, finishing a plate of warm fish stew. The flavors reminded him of how different life could be outside Konoha. This place was simpler, but beset by tyranny. Kakashi finished his meal and set the bowl aside. Naruto, mind taking a walk with me? Curiosity flared in Naruto. Sure. They stepped out into the cool night air. Crickets chirped in the distance, and a faint breeze rustled the grass. Kakashi led Naruto down a narrow path behind Tazuna's house, away from prying ears. So, Kakashi began gently. You've been doing well with normal chakra control. But I can't ignore what I saw in the mist. That barrier jutsu, or whatever it was. Naruto's throat tightened. He looked at Kakashi's single visible eye. I'm not sure how to explain it. Try me, Kakashi said, voice patient. Naruto swallowed. The memory of Danzo's warning flickered in his head, but Kakashi was his sensei. Someone he could trust more than a shadowy elder. Slowly, he described the strange flashes of memories, the name Anos Voldigod, and the black energy that surfaced under stress. He left out the full intensity of the nightmarish visions. Unsure how much Kakashi could handle without thinking him insane. Kakashi listened without interruption, expression thoughtful. Another consciousness inside you, emanate from the fox, or perhaps overshadowing it. He let out a slow breath. It's not unheard of for powerful entities to have reincarnations. But this is unusual. Naruto's heart pounded. You, believe me, why wouldn't I? Kakashi placed a hand on Naruto's shoulder. I saw enough in that battle with Zabuza. Plus, your chakra feels heavier than normal. If you can learn to control it, it might be a tremendous asset. But be careful, Naruto. If people like Danzo sense a threat, they'll try to exploit or contain you. Naruto's jaw tightened. I won't let them. Kakashi's gaze softened. I expected as much. Just stay aware that revealing too much power too soon will draw attention. Right now, let's focus on the mission. We can sort out the rest after. Naruto nodded, relieved. He'd feared Kakashi might treat him like a monster. But the Jonin's calm acceptance gave him renewed confidence. Thank you, Sensei. They headed back to the house, the tension between them eased. Naruto felt a surge of resolve. If Kakashi believed in him, maybe he could figure out how to manage this power without letting it consume him. Early dawn the bridge. With renewed vigor, Team 7 accompanied Tazuna to the construction site. Workers were already hammering away on the skeleton of the colossal bridge spanning the strait. A dense mist clung to the water's surface, but the day promised progress. Naruto, in charge of perimeter scouting, paced along the half-finished walkway, scanning the gray horizon. Sakura stayed near Tazuna, while Sasuke covered the opposite side. Kakashi observed from a central vantage, occasionally offering pointers to the workers about potential sabotage points. Time passed uneventfully, but tension lay thick in the air. Everyone expected Zabuza or the masked ninja to reappear. Sure enough, near midday, a sudden hush fell over the workers. A stiff breeze carried a sharper chill, swirling the mist into unnatural patterns. Sasuke's eyes narrowed. They're here. Kakashi's gaze snapped to a spot near the far end of the bridge. Two silhouettes emerged from the mist. Zabuza, very much alive despite the Senbon, death, and the same masked hunter Nin. Zabuza's sword rested on his shoulder, bandages fresh around his midsection. The hunter Nin stood slightly behind him, balanced on the guardrail. I told you this wasn't over, Zabuza growled. Kakashi lifted his headband, revealing the Sharingan. Team 7, form up, protect Tazuna. Naruto raced to Tazuna's side, heart hammering. No more illusions, this is the real rematch. And he was determined not to let anyone get hurt. Zabuza lunged first, water swirling around his feet as he closed the distance. Kakashi dashed forward to meet him head-on, their blades clashing in a spray of sparks. Metal rang out, echoing across the half-built bridge. Workers scattered, seeking cover. The hunter Nin gracefully skirted the battlefield, heading toward Sasuke. Sasuke launched a flurry of shuriken, which the masked ninja evaded with liquid elegance. In a blink, mirrored ice panels erupted, forming a crystalline prison around Sasuke, demonic mirroring ice crystals. The masked ninja stepped inside the dome of reflective panels, and countless reflections of the masked face stared down at Sasuke. Naruto's chest clenched. He recognized this scene from stories of advanced Kekkei Genkai from the Land of Water. Sasuke, hold on. He lunged toward the ice dome. But the masked ninja's Senbon rained out, forcing him to retreat. Sasuke attempted to break the mirrors with fire jutsu, but they only cracked momentarily before sealing again. Naruto could see Sasuke inside, eyes darting to track the illusions. Blood trickled from multiple Senbon pricks. Sakura kept Tazuna close, glancing between Kakashi's struggle and Sasuke's dire situation. Kakashi was locked in a deadly dance with Zabuza, water clones popping in and out, high-level jutsu colliding. Zabuza's ferocity was focused on preventing Kakashi from rescuing Sasuke. Naruto clenched his fists. He had to help Sasuke. Without hesitation, he dashed at the dome again, ignoring the Senbon that nicked his cheek. The sensation of that demonic power rose in him, coiling, ready to unleash. If he could conjure a barrier strong enough, or a destructive wave to shatter the mirrors, Sasuke might be freed. He pressed his palm against one ice panel, calling forth the black-violet energy. A ripple of darkness spread across the crystal. For a moment, it looked like it might fracture the entire dome. But the masked ninja darted inside the mirrors, hurling another volley of Senbon that disrupted Naruto's concentration. He recoiled, hissing at the sting of needles. Behind him, Sakura shouted, "Naruto! I'm fine," he snapped, though his arm throbbed. He tried again, SLAMMING, a demonic charged punch into a mirror. This time, a spiderweb of cracks appeared. A flicker of hope flared in his chest. From inside, Sasuke staggered. "Naruto, hurry!" The masked ninja sprang from mirror to mirror, launching needles from impossible angles. Sasuke activated his Sharingan mid-fight, barely deflecting most hits, but exhaustion etched his face. Zabuza snarled, noticing Naruto's interference. He feinted a strike at Kakashi, then launched a hidden water projectile at Naruto's back. Kakashi yelled a warning. The watery projectile slammed into Naruto, throwing him to the ground. White-hot pain shot through his ribs. Coughing, Naruto pushed himself up, eyes blazing. That swirling presence in his gut flared dangerously. Enough playing around. He raised a hand, crackling with violet lightning. The air around him distorted as if bowing to some ancient authority. Zabuza's eyes widened momentarily, sensing the shift. Naruto channeled everything into a single shot aimed at the ice dome's largest panel. "Sasuke, brace yourself." He unleashed the energy. A thunderous boom shook the entire bridge. The mirror shattered, sending shards of ice flying. A chunk of the dome collapsed. Sasuke wasted no time, seizing the opening to slip out of the dome's perimeter. The masked ninja tried to intercept, but Naruto, heart pumping with adrenaline, launched forward. He locked eyes with the masked shinobi through the slits in the mask. Something in those eyes flickered hesitation, or pity. Senbon flicked out. Naruto twisted, letting that demonic aura guide his reflexes. He deflected most of them with his forearm guard. One lodged in his shoulder, but he barely felt it, high on adrenaline. "You can't keep up," the masked ninja said softly, voice muffled but tinged with regret. "Why are you risking so much for a rival you don't even like?" Naruto snarled, ignoring the jibe. "He's my teammate. That's enough reason." He formed a rapid string of hand seals for the shadow clone jutsu. 4 clones erupted beside him, each radiating that same faint demonic aura. Their combined assault forced the masked ninja onto the defensive. Shards of broken mirror clattered around them. Masked ninja flitted between reflections, but the clones pursued relentlessly. Sasuke, newly freed, whipped a barrage of kunai at strategic angles, pinning the masked figure's escape paths. A ring of steel closed in. Meanwhile, Kakashi parried Zabuza's blade with a crackle of lightning. Reikiri sparked in his palm, the deadly edge forming. With a final burst, Kakashi drove the Reikiri forward, tearing through Zabuza's defenses. Blood sprayed. Zabuza gasped, dropping his sword. Across the bridge, workers cowered behind crates. Tazuna stood protectively in front of them, eyes wide. The end was near. The masked ninja saw Zabuza fall to his knees. A trembling tension filled the air. "Zabuza," the masked figure whispered, anguish lacing the tone. In that moment of distraction, Naruto's clones surged in, pinning the masked ninja's arms. Sasuke advanced, kunai raised to deliver a final strike. But Naruto yelled, "Wait!" He locked eyes with the masked ninja. For reasons he couldn't explain, he sensed no pure malice from them, only fierce loyalty to Zabuza. The masked figure's shoulders sagged, acceptance or despair darkening their posture. Before anything more could happen, a rumble of footsteps and coarse laughter echoed from the far side of the bridge. Gato himself appeared with a band of thugs, brandishing clubs and swords. The short, smug businessman surveyed the wounded Zabuza and the pinned hunter Nin. Well, if it isn't the demon I hired. You're worthless now, Gato sneered. Might as well kill you all. Zabuza, bleeding heavily, glared. Traitor. Kakashi, breathing hard, turned to Naruto and Sasuke. Thugs. At least 24. Protect Tazuna. Naruto's clones vanished, freeing the masked ninja. For a tense second, they could have fled or attacked. Instead, the hunter Nin gazed at Zabuza. Then at Gato's approaching gang. Betrayal radiated in the masked figure's trembling stance. Zabuza gripped his sword, struggling to rise. I'll kill Gato myself, he spat, staggering forward despite his wounds. In that moment, the masked ninja stepped up to support him. Naruto and Sasuke stood at their flanks, an unspoken alliance formed by Gato's sudden betrayal. Gato's goons rushed in. Kakashi, though exhausted, brandished a kunai, swiftly dispatching two who came too close. Sasuke and Naruto leapt into the fray, their teamwork surprisingly fluid. Naruto hammered away with demonic-enhanced strikes, mindful not to overexpose that power, but enough to bulldoze multiple thugs at once. Sasuke's Sharingan traced each foe's movements, letting him counter effortlessly. Sakura guarded Tazuna, flinging well-placed kunai to deter any approach. Zabuza, near death, still managed to carve through a path of Gato's men, fueled by hatred. The masked ninja whirled gracefully, Senbon flickering. Cries and clangs filled the air. It lasted mere minutes. By the end, bodies of Gato's men littered the bridge. Gato himself tried to flee, but Zabuza cornered him. A savage slash ended the tyrant's reign. Gasping, Zabuza collapsed soon after, life draining from his wounds. The masked ninja sank beside him, removing their mask to reveal tearful eyes. Kakashi approached quietly, acknowledging them. There was no threat left in Zabuza's final moments. The demon of the hidden mist stared at the sky, a faint smile on his lips. Kid, Zabuza rasped at Naruto, that power you have, monstrous. Guard it well, or it'll destroy you. Naruto didn't know what to say. The man's eyes closed for the last time. The masked ninja revealed to be a delicate-featured boy named Haku bowed his head in grief. Silent tears trailing down his cheeks. Naruto's chest tightened with a swirl of conflicting emotions. Triumph, pity, and the faint echo of Voldigod's own experiences with loyalty and betrayal. Moments later, Haku stood, trembling. I have nothing left. I was Zabuza's tool. Now that he's gone. Naruto wanted to offer comfort but struggled for words. Kakashi stepped in. You can choose another path. We won't harm you if you leave this behind. Haku's gaze flickered. He glanced at Zabuza's lifeless form, then at the battered Team 7. With a final, sorrowful nod, he disappeared into the thinning mist. Carrying Zabuza's sword, Naruto watched him go, uncertain if he'd made the right choice letting Haku leave. But the fight was over. The threat to Tazuna was gone. The land of waves was free from Gato's grasp. Kakashi knelt in exhaustion, Sasuke stumbling over to him. Sakura rushed to Naruto's side, relief etched on her face. Tazuna slowly approached, stunned by the carnage and the sudden silence. The workers emerged from hiding, cheers and tears mingling as they realized Gato was defeated. The country was safe thanks to the combined effort of these Leaf Shinobi and, ironically, Zabuza's final vengeance. Naruto leaned against a broken rail, blood trickling from his bruises. The demonic aura had subsided, leaving him bone-tired. Still, a resolute spark glowed within him. He had protected Tazuna, the bridge, his team, and maybe even Haku. This was the shinobi path he'd chosen. He glanced out over the horizon, where the mist had cleared to reveal the shining water. The swirl of Anos's power lay quiet now, but Naruto could sense it, waiting to be shaped. He refused to let it define him as a monster. If anything, it would be his strength to protect what mattered. Chapter End. Chapter 3. Clash on the Water. Gray dawn clouds rolled across the sky, casting long shadows over the half-finished bridge that stretched across the ocean inlet of the Land of Waves. A light mist licked at the wooden planks, swirling around the ankles of Naruto Uzumaki and his teammates. The mood felt heavy, an unspoken tension gripping the air. Naruto stood at the water's edge, gaze flicking between Tazuna the bridge builder hard at work among scaffolding, and the swirling haze that concealed so many dangers. Only yesterday they'd been ambushed by the legendary rogue ninja Zabuza Momochi, and by some miracle, Team 7 survived, but Naruto's gut told him it wasn't over. He inhaled deeply. There it was again. That low hum in his chest, a resonance of power not just from the Nine Tails, but from something older, darker. His dreams had been haunted by visions, glimpses of obsidian towers, demonic armies, a throne carved from black stone. Every so often, he'd hear a name heard on the edge of sleep, Anos Voldigod. Yet here, in the waking world, he couldn't let that overshadow the mission. They had to protect Tazuna. That came first. A tension-filled morning. Tazuna wiped sweat from his brow, hammering a thick nail into one of the bridge support beams. Several local workers labored beside him, eyes darting nervously to the waters below. Word had spread that Gado's forces and possibly more rogue shinobi would attempt to sabotage the construction. Sakura leaned against a railing, scanning the fog. She was dog-tired. None of them had slept well since the ambush. Glancing at Naruto, she forced a small smile. "You holding up okay?" Naruto nodded, flashing a confident grin he didn't entirely feel. "Yeah, course I am. We'll trash anyone who tries to mess with this bridge." He felt Sasuke's presence at his back before he saw him, quiet, tense, alert. Sasuke's eyes flicked between the distant ends of the bridge, every muscle coiled. At times, Naruto sensed that Sasuke was pushing himself even harder than usual, determined not to be overshadowed. Not far away, Kakashi Hatake stood with a bored posture, nose buried in his ever-present orange novel. But Naruto knew better. Kakashi's one visible eye periodically scanned the horizon, always ready to react at the first sign of trouble. The hush felt oppressive, broken only by hammering tools and the whoosh of ocean breeze. Then, with jarring clarity, a swirl of thicker mist rolled in, colder, more sinister. Naruto's heart kicked against his ribs. He recognized that chakra signature, the taste of killing intent that made his hair stand on end. Kakashi-sensei's not the only one who senses it. Zabuza returns. A shadow materialized on the far end of the bridge. Zabuza stood there, sword slung across his back, bandaged mouth drawn into a humorless grin. His torn bandages and battered form confirmed he was still recovering from their last fight, but his aura radiated lethal intent. Just behind him, a Aller figure in a hunter nin mask hovered with liquid grace Haku, the masked shinobi they'd encountered before. Naruto tensed up, remembering the sincerity in Haku's eyes, the strange compassion that contrasted with the brutal techniques he wielded. Kakashi lifted his gaze from his book. "Zabuza Momochi, looks like you healed faster than expected." Zabuza spat on the bridge. "You got lucky before, copy ninja. This time, you and your brats won't walk away." Naruto swallowed, excitement mixing with dread. The demonic power in his veins seemed to stir, eager for release. He clenched his fists. "No, keep it together. Use it only if you have to." Kakashi flipped his book closed and pocketed it. "Team 7, protect Tazuna. Keep your guard up. Zabuza won't underestimate us again." They spread out, forming a protective semicircle around Tazuna and the workers. Sasuke took position on the right, kunai at the ready. Sakura stayed close to Tazuna's side, kunai trembling in her grip. Naruto picked the left flank, eyes flicking to Haku. He called to Haku, voice echoing in the mist. "You really want to go through with this? We saved you too from Gado's double cross. You don't have to fight with Zabuza anymore." Haku's gaze lowered. "I am Zabuza-sama's tool. That's all I've ever known." Before Naruto could argue, Zabuza peeled away from Haku, slicing through the air in a burst of speed. Kakashi darted forward to meet him. Their clash of blades rang out like thunder. Sparks lit the air as Kakashi's kunai deflected Zabuza's massive sword. Haku blurred, flipping through hand seals. In an instant, shimmering ice mirrors sprouted in a wide circle, glittering in the dull light. The workers cried out in alarm, scrambling behind crates and scaffolding. Naruto and Sasuke found themselves partially trapped, reflections of Haku flickering in every mirror. "We need to break these things again," Sasuke muttered, activating his Sharingan. "Stay close, Idiot. Naruto nodded. Let's do it. Sasuke's paw of the ice prison. Inside the ring of mirrored panels, Sasuke's heart pounded. He'd barely escaped last time with Naruto's help. The memory of Senbon needles biting into his flesh lingered in his mind. This time, I have the Sharingan. Across multiple reflections, Haku's soft voice echoed. I respect your eyes, Sasuke Uchiha. But can they keep up? The next instant, Senbon hissed from countless angles. Sasuke spun, deflecting with a flurry of kunai. Some Senbon still nicked him, leaving shallow cuts along his arms. The illusions made it maddeningly difficult to pinpoint Haku's true location. Naruto surged up alongside him, forming a quick string of seals. Shadow Clone Jutsu. 4 clones appeared, racing at different mirrors with fists raised. Although they forced Haku to shift positions, it wasn't enough to crack the dome. Sasuke grit his teeth. Naruto, if we focus a combined hit, we might break one panel. Naruto nodded. On my signal. They wove through a quick plan. Sasuke uld bombard the top row of mirrors with shuriken from different angles while Naruto slammed a direct chakra-infused punch from below. A flurry of steel soared overhead. Sasuke's aim was precise, honed by his Sharingan. Dozens of starbursts ricocheted off the mirrors, forcing Haku to dodge within the reflections. Meanwhile, Naruto charged the base mirror, channeling the demonic energy he'd been carefully hiding. Sparks of violet flickered around his knuckles. Now, Naruto roared. He unleashed a savage punch at the mirror's center. A thunderous impact shook the entire structure, spider webbing cracks through the ice. For an instant, Haku's silhouette wavered. Sasuke leapt in with a final volley of shuriken, each aimed precisely at the weakened fault lines. The mirror shattered, sending shards skittering across the bridge. Naruto stumbled back, chest heaving, while Sasuke lowered his throwing arm. Haku's voice echoed from the remaining mirrors, tinged with sorrow. You've grown stronger. But so have I. Without warning, more ice mirrors crystallized, repairing the ring. The energy cost must have been enormous, but Haku's determination to protect Zabuza burned through the exhaustion. Sasuke fought down a surge of panic. They were nearly back to square one. Naruto's paw of a desperate move. Naruto wiped blood from a shallow Senbon wound on his cheek. Haku's no joke. The regrets in Aku's eyes suggested he didn't truly want to kill them, but loyalty to Zabuza drove him onward. Somewhere beyond the ice dome, Naruto heard Kakashi's battle with Zabuza intensify. The clang of steel ND blasts of water jutsu rattled the scaffold. If Team 7 didn't break free soon, Tazuna would be at risk. He pushed aside the fear. Sasuke, I'm gonna try something bigger. Sasuke scowled. Bigger than smashing half the mirror just now. Naruto closed his eyes briefly, feeling the swirl of alien energy coil in his gut. A memory flashed: armies kneeling under a black sky, chanting a name that made him shudder. Anos Voldigod. But he shoved away the disorientation and focused on the mirror in front of him. If he could release a precise shockwave, something akin to a miniature bomb, maybe it would break multiple mirrors at once. Just gotta hope I don't blow up half the bridge in the process. He formed the tiger seal, mixing normal chakra with that demonic resonance. Violet arcs crackled at his fingertips. Sasuke's eyes widened, possibly sensing the unnatural aura. Haku emerged from a mirror, Senbon poised. Forgive me. Senbon whistled through the air. Naruto pressed his palm forward, unleashing a wave of crackling violet force. The swirling chakra collided with the incoming needles, sending them clattering harmlessly to the floor. Then it slammed into the entire ring of mirrors. A crescendo of shattering ice resounded. Several panels exploded outright, sending icy debris flying. Sasuke shielded his face, cursing under his breath. Haku gasped, forced to retreat to a smaller cluster of unbroken mirrors near the far side. The dome was no longer complete. Naruto's pulse thundered. We've got an opening. Sasuke didn't hesitate. He dashed forward, flipping through hand seals for a fireball jutsu that roared through the shattered gap. Flames whooshed, forcing Haku out of hiding. The masked shinobi rolled on the bridge, panting. Naruto locked eyes with Haku. Stop this. Zabuza is just using you. Haku's grip on the Senbon trembled. That may be so, but I owe him my life. I can't abandon him. Before Naruto could reply, Haku launched a flurry of Senbon straight for his chest. Adrenaline kicked in, and Naruto barely conjured a flicker of that demon barrier. The needles clinked against a violet-hued shield, dropping to the bridge. Naruto coughed, doubling over from the strain. That's the second time in minutes I've used demon energy. I have to be careful. Sasuke seized the moment to hurl kunai, each aimed at Haku's arms and legs to disable him without delivering a fatal blow. Haku spun, deflecting what he could, but one kunai sliced his thigh. He stumbled, mask cracking from another glancing hit. Through the crack, Naruto glimpsed Haku's anguished expression. "I'm sorry," the masked boy murmured before leaping back to regroup. Kakashi vs. Zabuza water-torn battlefield. On the other side of the bridge, Kakashi and Zabuza clashed in a whirlwind of water. Jets of liquid coiled around them, shaped by high-level ninjutsu. Kakashi's Sharingan swirled, copying and predicting movements, but Zabuza's raw ferocity made every exchange deadly. With each collision, the bridge's wooden planks rattled. Water drenched the area, forming shallow pools that Zabuza exploited to create additional water clones. Kakashi destroyed them almost as fast as they materialized, but it was a draining endeavor. They broke apart, panting. Zabuza sneered under his bandages. "You wasted too much chakra on that last water dragon jutsu. This time, I'll cut you down for sure." Kakashi wiped blood from a shallow gash on his forearm. "Don't underestimate me." In a burst of speed, Zabuza appeared behind Kakashi, sword glinting in a downward slash. Kakashi twisted just in time, sparks flying as kunai met steel. The impact knocked Kakashi's weapon from his hand, sending it skittering across the slippery boards. Zabuza capitalized, slamming a heel into Kakashi's ribs. The Jonin crashed into a railing, coughing. Zabuza lunged to finish him, sword raised. Kakashi's hands shot up in a flurry of signs. Reikiri lightning cutter ignited in his grasp, a crackling sphere of electric chakra. He thrust upward, aiming to counter Zabuza's lethal downward slash. Steel and lightning collided, bathing the area in white-hot sparks. For a split second, both men strained against each other. Then Kakashi angled the Reikiri, slicing into Zabuza's torso. Zabuza staggered back, blood staining his bandages. He let out a guttural snarl. Kakashi grimaced, also staggering from the blow's recoil. "Why won't you just?" A sudden shift in the atmosphere made both men glance toward the battered remains of Haku's ice mirrors. Naruto had just unleashed another wave of that violet chakra. Zabuza's eyes widened in recognition of something beyond the nine tails. "So that's the boy's new trick," Zabuza growled, gripping his sword. Kakashi breathed heavily. "He's not the same kid you fought before." Zabuza's bandaged mouth curled into a bitter grin. "Hey, good. I love a challenge." But the toll on Zabuza's body was evident. Multiple slash wounds, blood draining steadily. Even his monstrous endurance had limits. Convergence on the bridge. Sakura crouched beside Tazuna, heart pounding, kunai at the ready. The workers huddled behind them. She cast anxious glances at the two battles raging on opposite ends of the bridge. "I can't just stand here, but I have to protect Tazuna." Despite her tension, she held her ground. If any stray rogue tried to seize Tazuna, she'd defend him. "Stay behind me, okay," she said quietly. Tazuna gave a shaky nod. Suddenly, Gato's mercenaries, at least a dozen, appeared from the mist, creeping around the side of the bridge. Clearly, Gato still had men prepared to sabotage Tazuna's work. Sakura stiffened. "Naruto, Sasuke." Naruto turned, spotting the incoming thugs. His mind raced. Haku was still a threat, but Tazuna was priority. "Sasuke, can you handle Haku?" The Uchiha boy, breathing hard, nodded. "Go." Naruto broke off, sprinting to intercept the mercenaries. A wave of relief washed over Sakura as Naruto placed himself between Tazuna and the oncoming threat. One of the mercenaries sneered, brandishing a club. "Little ninja brat thinks he can take us." Naruto exhaled, forging two shadow clones. The clones tackled the first mercenary, while Naruto spun into a swift roundhouse that floored the second. With the demonic aura still buzzing in his core, each strike felt heavier, more confident. Sakura steeled herself and leapt in, slashing low with her kunai at another mercenary who got too close. Blood spattered as he howled, dropping his weapon. Tazuna took the chance to sock another in the jaw with surprising fierceness. Amid the chaos, Naruto glimpsed Haku, pinned down by Sasuke's relentless assault. Senbon clinked against kunai in a blur of steel. Sasuke's Sharingan spun, reading Haku's moves. Step by step, Haku was forced back to the broken edges of the mirror remnants. In a decisive burst, Sasuke deflected a volley of Senbon and lunged, ramming a fist into Haku's chest. The masked shinobi gasped, staggering. A final lash from Sasuke's kunai tore through the hunter mask, revealing Haku's delicate features. Haku's dark eyes, filled with sorrow, locked onto Sasuke. I'm sorry. Sasuke froze for half a breath, expected sympathy flickering across his usually stoic face. Then Haku slipped free, rolling to the side, trying to regroup near Zabuza. That was all the time the masked boy had. Suddenly, Kakashi's voice rang out. Naruto, Sasuke, move aside. Kakashi, battered and bleeding, dashed forward with Reikiri crackling in his hand. His target. Zabuza. The rogue ninja was too wounded to keep pace. Zabuza roared, swinging his blade in a last-ditch defense. Lightning sheared through steel. Kakashi's palm slammed into Zabuza's chest. With a final, gurgling breath, the demon of the hidden mist staggered and sank to his knees. Sword clattering to the soaked planks. Blood poured from the mortal wound. A tense hush gripped the battlefield. Haku cried out, Zabuza-sama. Dropping to his side, Haku pressed shaking hands against Zabuza's wounds. Tears streaming down. Please, no, don't die. Zabuza's eyes dimmed. Haku, you were a good tool. Naruto felt his throat tighten. He remembered that moment by the ice dome. Seeing the heartbreak in Haku's face. Even Sasuke stood silent, kunai lowered. Kakashi, panting, withdrew his bloody hand. Zabuza coughed weakly. Kid with the weird chakra, you're something else. You all are. His voice faded as he slumped forward, the light snuffed from his gaze. Haku froze, tears carving paths down his cheeks. For a moment, he just cradled Zabuza's head, eyes empty with loss. Gato's betrayal and sudden turn. The sound of clapping broke the stillness. Gato, flanked by more mercenaries, strode onto the bridge. He sneered at the sight of Zabuza's corpse. Well, the demon of the mist, defeated by some leaf brats, saves me the trouble of paying him. He nodded to his men. Finish them off. The old man and his crew, too. A wave of fresh thugs advanced, brandishing clubs and machetes. Naruto braced himself, mind flashing back to the fiasco at Tazuna's home when he'd first realized how many enemies Gato could muster. But then, something unexpected happened. Haku stood, wiping tears with the back of his hand. His eyes burned with fierce resolve. Zabuza-sama believed in our dream, I won't let you tarnish it. Without hesitation, Haku launched forward, Senbon flying with lethal precision. Several of Gato's men fell, howling in pain. Naruto seized the moment. He formed shadow clones in quick succession, commanding them to block off the mercenaries' path to Tazuna. Kakashi, battered but resolute, leapt into the fray, dispatching foes with swift kunai strikes. Sasuke followed suit, Sharingan reading every movement. Sakura guarded Tazuna, ensuring no stray attacker slipped past. Fists and blades collided amid yells of fear and defiance. Naruto's fists glowed faintly with violet sparks as he hammered multiple mercenaries, sending them sprawling. The bridge rattled under the weight of the melee. In desperation, Gato himself lunged at Tazuna, a dagger clutched in his trembling hand. I'll at least kill you. Sakura's eyes widened. She interposed herself, arms raised in a defensive stance. But before Gato could strike, Naruto's clone tackled him from behind, slamming him onto the cold planks. The dagger clattered away. You little worm. Gato sputtered, thrashing. Naruto's clone vanished, and the real Naruto stepped up, breathing hard. You're done. The final scattered mercenaries, seeing Gato pinned and dozens of their companions taken out, began to flee in all directions. Darkness and panic overcame their greed. Gato tried to crawl away, but Kakashi loomed over him, exhaustion etched on his face. This is over, Kakashi said quietly. Gato looked around, eyes wild. No Zabuza to protect him. No men left loyal to him. Just the battered leaf shinobi and Haku, who now knelt by Zabuza's body, silent in grief. Aftermath. A heavy stillness settled on the bridge. broken only by the ragged breathing of those still standing. Tizuna stepped forward, shoulders shaking as relief cascaded over him. His workers emerged from hiding, cheering or crying once they realized Gado's reign of terror was finally ended. Naruto turned to Haku, who hadn't moved from Zabuza's side. Slowly, he approached, ignoring the stinging in his limbs. Haku, the boy spoke in a hollow tone. He's gone. Naruto pressed his lips together, unsure what to say. He remembered Zabuza's final words, the regrets unspoken. You can still live. You don't have to follow the path he chose. Haku trembled. He was everything. The only one who ever needed me. Now, his voice cracked. A surge of empathy burned Naruto's throat. He recalled his own loneliness, no family, no friends at first. I know how that feels, he murmured. But, there are new people you can protect, if you're willing. You're free now. Haku closed his eyes, tears sliding down his cheeks. Finally, he nodded, though grief still shadowed his features. I want to atone for what we've done here. I'll leave if that's best. Kakashi, hearing the exchange, stepped closer. We won't force you to stay in the land of waves. But if you choose to walk a different path, that's your right. I won't arrest you if you're sincere about leaving your past behind. Haku lifted Zabuza's sword with trembling hands. I'll bury him. Then I'll go. Thank you for sparing me. Naruto placed a hand on Haku's shoulder, giving a small nod. In that moment, he sensed a shift in the demonic aura that simmered inside him like a calm acceptance. No more senseless deaths. Sasuke watched silently, arms crossed, still catching his breath. Sakura exhaled, tension dissolving from her frame. Tizuna, tears in his eyes, stepped forward to thank them. I don't know how to repay you. You saved me, saved this entire country from Gado. We can finish the bridge in peace now. Naruto tried to grin. Build it big, and maybe name it after me. Tizuna laughed through watery eyes, clapping Naruto on the shoulder. You bet, kid. Despite the carnage and exhaustion, a sense of triumph glowed in Naruto's chest. He glanced at Kakashi, who nodded approvingly. Sakura knelt to check Sasuke's wounds, fussing over a few Senbon cuts. Haku carried Zabuza's body away, disappearing into the lifting mist. Naruto felt a pang of sorrow for them. He hoped Haku would find a better life now. Back at Tizuna's house, Team 7 returned to Tizuna's modest home. Tsunami and Inari rushed out to greet them, relief evident on their faces. Tsunami clasped her father's hands, tears falling as he recounted the fall of Gado. Inari hovered by Naruto, eyes wide with admiration and something akin to awe. Thank you, the boy murmured. I used to think heroes didn't exist. But you proved otherwise. Naruto ruffled Inari's hair, warmth blooming in his chest. Heroes do exist, but sometimes we're just knuckleheads doing our best. Inari's face lit with a shy smile. Inside, the group washed away the grime of battle and shared a simple meal of hot soup and rice. No one spoke much, exhaustion weighed too heavily on them. But the sense of victory thrummed in the air, mingling with quiet relief that they'd survived. Kakashi eventually set down his chopsticks. We'll stay the night, then head back to Konoha. The Hokage will need a full report. Tizuna raised his glass of water. You'll always be welcome in the land of waves. Sasuke nodded politely, though he kept glancing at Naruto. Naruto noticed but didn't comment. It was as if Sasuke was assessing how far Naruto's skills and that mysterious aura had come. Nightfall outside Tizuna's house. Sleep was a tempting escape, but Naruto found himself restless. Too many images spun in his head. Zabuza's final moments, Haku's tears, the eerie satisfaction he'd felt summoning that demonic power. I need to breathe. He walked into the moonlit yard, the distant sea breeze carrying a hint of salt. Staring at the sky, he couldn't stop replaying the battle in his mind, how the demon aura had answered his call, how it had protected him and let him protect others. Footsteps approached. Turning, he saw Sakura, arms folded to keep out the chill. Hey, she said gently. Couldn't sleep. Naruto shrugged, giving a faint grin. Guess not. She came closer, eyes reflecting concern. Everything's been so intense. I'm just glad we're all alive. Naruto blew out a breath. Me too. But, part of me wonders if I went too far. Using that power, nearly tearing the bridge apart. Sakura shook her head. You did what you had to. You saved Sasuke from that ice dome, saved Tazuna from Gato's men. I don't know what's going on inside you, but it helped us. He looked away, a flicker of self-consciousness. Thanks. It's just complicated. She gave him a smile, soft and earnest. I get that, and maybe it'll always be complicated. But you're not alone, Naruto. You've got teammates, friends, me. Her cheeks reddened slightly at the admission, but she didn't shy away. Naruto felt a warmth deeper than the demonic aura, more comforting than the applause of any crowd. He gently bumped her shoulder. Thanks, Sakura-chan, he murmured. They stood there in silence under the moon, the hush of the night wrapping around them. Despite the chaos and the unknown future, for this moment, it felt like everything was exactly how it should be. Farewell to the land of waves. Morning arrived bright and clear. Tazuna insisted on walking them partway to the new bridge, which neared completion. Workers bustled around, finishing touches on the structure that would connect the land of waves to better trade and hope. Inari clung to Naruto's leg until Tsunami gently pried him away. Goodbye, big bro, Inari said, voice cracking. Naruto ruffled his hair one last time. Stay strong, and keep believing. Tazuna walked them to the far end of the bridge, pausing where the boards met the main road. Well, this is it. We'll call it the Great Naruto Bridge, he announced, earning a flustered grin from Naruto. Sakura chuckled. You'll have to build an even bigger statue if Naruto ever becomes Hokage. Tazuna looked thoughtful. Maybe so. Good luck, all of you. With that, Team 7 set off down the road, heading back to the Hidden Leaf Village. Kakashi led the way, he still appeared drained from the fight. Sasuke walked in reflective silence, a faint scowl on his face as though he was wrestling with a private conflict. Naruto felt lighter than he had in days. They had won, but it wasn't just about victory. They'd proven something about loyalty, about the choices that made a shinobi. And that demonic power within him, he'd used it to save lives, not destroy them. Maybe there was a path forward that wouldn't force him to become a monster. He took one last look at the bridge, shining in the sunlight, then locked his gaze on the horizon. Next stop, Konoha, and the future challenges waiting there. Chapter end. Konoha's massive gates stood open under the early morning sun, their shadows stretching across the road as Naruto and the rest of Team 7 trudged inside. Returning to the village after the harrowing events in the Land of Waves felt strangely disorienting, like walking from a battlefield straight into a peaceful festival. Civilians bustled about their usual chores, some casting only fleeting, curious glances at the dusty, bandaged genin. Naruto rubbed the back of his neck, eyes flicking around for any sign of trouble. Ever since he'd awakened, that strange demonic power and used it so openly against Zabuza and Haku, he couldn't shake the sense that eyes were always on him. As far as he could tell, no one in the crowd was paying special attention. Still, a prickling unease lingered. Beside him, Sakura held a rolled-up mission scroll, the official proof of their completed assignment. She looked just as preoccupied, though when she spotted a familiar face in the crowd, a classmate or passing neighbor, she mustered polite greetings. Sasuke walked a step behind, gaze forward, arms in his pockets. He hadn't said much since they left the Land of Waves. But that wasn't particularly new. Kakashi brought up the rear with his usual lazy stride and bored half-lidded expression. They reached a quieter side street leading toward the Hokage Tower. Naruto sensed the shift immediately. Fewer civilians, more shinobi presence. His eyes darted to a pair of masked Anbu perched on a nearby rooftop. They were gone in a blink of flickering movement. But something about their sudden appearance set his nerves on edge. Sakura clutched the scroll a bit tighter. Feels like we're being watched, she murmured. Kakashi exhaled softly, likely just routine observation. The Hokage wants to confirm the details of our mission as soon as possible, given that it escalated to near A rank. Sasuke let out a quiet scoff. Could also be that certain people in the village have decided Naruto's abilities deserve extra scrutiny. Naruto tensed, remembering Danzo's sharp-eyed stare in the corridor after their last debrief. He didn't want to cause friction with his teammates, especially not after everything they'd just survived together, but he also didn't want the scrutiny to spill onto them. Guilt and frustration churned in him. They can watch me all they want, he said, forcing a grin. I'm not hiding anything. Kakashi's gaze flicked over him with subtle concern. Just don't pick a fight in the middle of the village. We have a report to deliver first. They hurried on, crossing the threshold into the Hokage Tower. The hallways echoed with hushed conversations of shinobi returning from missions, squads dashing about, and administrative staff sorting scrolls at cluttered desks. At the top floor, two Chunin guards stepped aside to allow them entry into the Hokage's office. Inside, the third Hokage looked up from a neat stack of documents, pipe in hand. His wrinkled features pulled into a measured smile. Team 7, come in. I trust the Land of Waves mission concluded successfully. Sakura presented the scroll, bowing slightly. Yes, Lord Hokage. We completed construction of the bridge, defeated Gado's mercenaries, and neutralized Zabuza Momochi. The Hokage nodded, accepting the scroll. Excellent work. I'll have it archived and updated. Your performance was commendable, given the sudden jump in mission rank. Kakashi cleared his throat. If I may, Hokage-sama, I'd like to request that the more sensitive details of Naruto's involvement remain classified. An almost imperceptible flicker crossed the old man's eyes. He glanced at Naruto, then inhaled from his pipe. Yes, I've already made arrangements. Rest assured, any unusual L-chakra signatures or abilities you displayed will not be widely circulated. Sasuke folded his arms, and if certain factions within the village want to pry, the Hokage exhaled smoke, letting it billow around him. They will find only sealed records. That is my prerogative as the third Hokage. Nevertheless, be cautious. Rumors can be as persistent as the wind. Naruto fought the urge to bow too hastily in gratitude. Thanks, Lord Hokage. I appreciate it. A faint smile curved the old man's lips. You've earned a break. Recuperate. Soon, we'll begin gearing up for the Chunin exams, so use your downtime wisely. Official announcements will come once the final arrangements with our allied villages are done. Excitement flared in Naruto's chest. Chunin exams. He'd heard older NTS talk about them. A grand event where genin from different villages competed to prove their worth. It was a chance to shine and also a chance to test the boundaries of his evolving demon power. Kakashi gave a polite bow. We'll take our leave then, Hokage-sama. They turned to exit, but as they did, Naruto spotted a figure in the corner, an old man with bandaged features, leaning on a cane, face half shrouded in shadow. Danzo. He hadn't been there a moment ago. Naruto's heart jumped, but he forced himself to keep walking, ignoring the chill that crawled down his spine. The moment the door shut behind them, Naruto let out a huff. Danzo was in there, he muttered under his breath to Sasuke and Sakura. That guy is always lurking. Kakashi glanced back, voice hushed. Don't worry about him. Keep your head down. We have business of our own to handle. He paused, rummaging in his pouch. You three are dismissed for the day, but I expect you all at Training Field 3 tomorrow morning. Understood. They murmured agreement. Kakashi gave them a casual wave, then vanished in a swirl of leaves. Naruto wondered if the Jonin was planning some kind of specialized training or if there was more to the hush-hush conversation with the Hokage. Either way, Naruto felt a mix of relief and restlessness. Sakura yawned. I'm heading home. My parents have probably worried themselves sick. I'll see you tomorrow. Sasuke grunted a farewell, eyes distant, before turning down a separate corridor. He'd been increasingly quiet, attention humming under every word. Naruto suspected that Sasuke's near defeat by Haku weighed heavily on him. Pride was a tricky thing. Naruto stood alone in the hallway. A swirl of possibilities spun in his mind. Training to refine the demon power, checking in with friends, or even dropping by Ichiraku for a celebratory meal. Then again, there was the matter of Danzo. Something told him he might be safer not walking around alone, but he'd never been one to back down from a challenge. He set off, deciding on ramen first. Food always helped him think straight. Ellipsis. The midday sun hung overhead as Naruto navigated the bustling main street leading toward Ichiraku Ramen. His stomach growled, lured by the prospect of miso with extra pork. He had only reached the final turn when a familiar voice called out. Hey, Naruto. He glanced over to see Ino Yamanaka jogging toward him, wearing her purple outfit and a curious grin. It was the first time they'd run into each other since his return from Wave. She came to a halt, hands on her hips. Finally back, huh, Shikamaru. Said you got yourself into a real mess out there. Naruto shoved his hands into his pockets, adopting a cocky tilt to his head. Yeah, but I handled it. No big deal. Ino rolled her eyes. Sure. Heard you basically took on a missing nin who was way out of your league. You're lucky you're still breathing. He bristled, about to retort, but a part of him noted that she seemed more worried than dismissive. Her initial jab aside, her gaze flicked over him as if checking for any sign of serious injury. Something about that softened his annoyance. Well, I'm all in one piece, he said, crossing his arms. You hungry? I was about to grab ramen. She clicked her tongue as though considering, but then shrugged. Fine, my treat, since you apparently cheated death. He blinked. Really? No strings attached. Smiling mischievously, Ino gestured for him to follow. Let's go before I change my mind. They slipped into Ichiraku Ramen's narrow stall, greeted by the mouthwatering aroma of broth and noodles. Ayame and Tyuki welcomed them cheerfully. Naruto noticed Ino glancing around, ensuring no big crowds were eavesdropping, before taking a seat beside him at the counter. They placed orders. Naruto went for miso with extra chashu, while Ino opted for a smaller bowl. The moment the steaming dishes arrived, Naruto dug in with enthusiasm, finishing half before even noticing Ino watching him in mild amusement. He swallowed hard, wiping his mouth. What? Nothing, she teased. You eat like you just came off a desert island. He let out an awkward laugh. Guess I'm still starving from the mission. I was pretty beat up. Half-truth. In reality, the demonic power had left him physically drained in ways he couldn't easily explain. Ino tapped her chopsticks on the rim of her bowl, eyes drifting toward him. So, what exactly happened in the land of waves? There are rumors swirling around. Some say you fought a legendary swordsman from the mist and unleashed weird jutsu. Naruto's chest tightened. He recalled the Hokage's warning to keep things quiet. At the same time, he felt a pang of trust toward Ino. She'd offered to listen before. We had a run-in with Zabuza Momochi. It got complicated, but we handled it. As for weird jutsu, he paused, gauging her reaction. Let's just say I've been learning new tricks. She narrowed her eyes thoughtfully. You always were surprising, B. Oops, something about you feels different now. Not necessarily bad, but heavier, like your chakras changed. He tried to play it off with a grin. Maybe I'm just finally becoming the awesome ninja I said I'd be. Ino smirked but didn't push further. She had a sharp intuition. Perhaps she sensed the boundaries of what he was willing to share. Instead, she steered the conversation to lighter topics. Gossip about other rookie genin teams and speculation about the upcoming Chunin exams. I heard the Sand Village might send some promising candidates, Ino said. Temari, Kankuro, even their Jinchuriki, Gaara. People say he's never been scratched in a fight. Naruto stiffened slightly at the word Jinchuriki. It reminded him of the Nine Tails but also made him wonder how his new demon power might compare to other tailed beasts. I guess we'll find out soon enough, he said. I'm not afraid to face anyone. She gave a half laugh, finishing her noodles. Typical Naruto. Just don't get yourself killed in some grandstanding match. There it was, concern buried beneath teasing. He nudged her with his elbow. I'll be fine, you'll see. They paid up, with Ino waving him off when he tried to split the bill. Outside, the midday warmth had mellowed. Naruto stuffed his hands in his pockets, glancing up at the sky. He felt more relaxed than he had in days. Maybe because it felt normal bantering with a friend. Not worrying every second about hidden watchers. Ino pivoted to face him, one hand on her hip. I guess I'll see you around. Try not to vanish on another crazy mission. He laughed. No promises. She looked about to say something else, maybe invite him to train, maybe something bolder, but hesitated. Instead, she gave a small wave. Later, knucklehead. He watched her go, feeling a faint swirl of satisfaction. There was an undeniable spark there, a certain chemistry in how she ribbed him, teased him, yet always circled back to making sure he was okay. And oddly, he found himself looking forward to more of those moments, just as he did with Sakura's concern and Hinata's gentle presence. The notion made his cheeks warm. Focus, Naruto, he reminded himself, turning away. I've got training tomorrow with Kakashi. Ellipsis. By late afternoon, The sun had started its slow descent, painting the village in a warm glow. Naruto wandered the outskirts, eventually finding himself at the edge of a remote training ground. Tall grass swayed in a soft breeze, and an old wooden fence marked the boundary between the field and a thicket of trees. He glanced around, no sign of anyone else. Perfect. He approached a weathered training dummy at the far end, thinking back to the last time he'd tested that demon energy. He could summon it, but it always came with a sense of risk, like tampering with a force that dwarfed him in age and power. He breathed in, focusing, recalling how it felt in wave, that swirl of dark violet chakra, the crackle of raw destructive potential. Closing his eyes, he arted the normal flow of his bright orange chakra, searching deeper, to the icy undercurrent beneath it. For a moment, he hesitated, recalling how Zabuza's final words mentioned his monstrous potential. Then he braced himself and tugged at the demonic reservoir. A faint glow lit the air around his arms, dark but with small pulses of purple and black. The grass beneath his feet flattened from an unseen pressure, and the training dummy quivered. Naruto exhaled, gritting his teeth at the strain. A wave of dizziness nearly toppled him. He steadied himself. I can't let it control me. He launched a punch forward, sending a concussive blast at the dummy. It cracked, but didn't explode as violently as before. Still, the force was enough to snap the wooden pole supporting the target. He saw the structure tilt, then collapse. Not bad. He'd consciously held back, preventing the technique from going wide and flattening half the field. That was progress control. Gasping for breath, he released the demon aura, letting the swirl fade. It left him drained, but he grinned in satisfaction. Little by little, he was mastering it. Then he felt a presence at his back. Whipping around, he found no one in sight, just the rustling of leaves. His heart hammered. Who's there? Silence. He scanned the tree line. Still nothing. Maybe it was just leftover paranoia. But he couldn't shake the feeling that something or someone had been watching. He decided it was best to leave before curiosity lured him deeper into potential trouble. With one last glance at the fallen dummy, he set off toward home, mind buzzing with the possibilities of how he'd refine his new powers for the Chunin exams and how many watchers he might have on his tail in the process. Ellipsis. Night fell over Konoha, the village lights twinkling like lazy fireflies. In a dimly lit chamber beneath the Hokage Tower, Danzo stood with a handful of masked root operatives arrayed before him. The single candle in the room cast long shadows, distorting their features into ominous shapes. One of the operatives stepped forward, voice low. We confirmed the boy tested his abilities again at an abandoned training ground this afternoon. His power readings were peculiar. Not just the 9 tails. Danzo's single visible eye narrowed. So Kakashi was telling the truth. There is another force at work in Uzumaki Naruto. Should we move to apprehend him? The operative asked, tone carefully measured. Danzo tapped his cane against the floor, each dull thud echoing. No, not yet. The third has placed a seal of confidentiality on the boy's abilities. If we act too openly, we risk igniting conflict with the Hokage. For now, watch from the shadows. Gather data. He turned, pivoting on his heel with surprising grace for his age. Keep me informed of any breakthroughs in his power usage. If it truly dwarfs the 9 tails, we might have more to fear than an average Jinchuriki. The operatives bowed as one, then vanished into the darkness. Danzo blew out the candle, leaving the chamber in absolute blackness. Ellipsis. Morning arrived bright and clear. Naruto was up early, practically bouncing on the balls of his feet as he sprinted toward training field 3. Although his conversation with Ino and his solitary practice had improved his mood, a swirl of restless energy still buzzed beneath his skin. He wanted direction, a real chance to push forward under Kakashi's guidance. He arrived at the field to find Sasuke already there, tossing kunai at a series of wooden targets. Each throw landed with pinpoint accuracy. Naruto greeted him with a grin, but Sasuke only gave a curt nod. Something flickered in Sasuke's dark eyes, envy, maybe, or suppressed frustration. Naruto wondered if it was about Naruto's growing power. Even if Sasuke wouldn't say it aloud, the tension was there. Sakura arrived next, hair neatly brushed, wearing her standard red dress and black shorts. She gave them both a polite wave. Morning. Kakashi-sensei's late again. As if on cue, a swirl of leaves revealed Kakashi perched on a wooden post. I crinkled in a cheerful arc. Yo, Sakura rolled her eyes. You're never on time, sensei. Kakashi hopped down, ignoring the jab. All right, gather up. We've got a lot to cover. They formed a loose semicircle around him. Naruto vibrated with anticipation. So, what's today's training? Kakashi tucked away his ever-present orange book. Before we start, let me say this. The Chunin exams are around the corner. Each of you needs to sharpen your skills. But there's more to being a shinobi than raw power. Teamwork, strategy, and controlling your impulses matter. Sasuke exhaled impatiently. We know that. Kakashi cast him a sidelong glance. Do you? Because what happened in Wave wasn't just about personal strength. GTH, it was about trusting each other in life and death scenarios. If we'd fought separately, we would have lost. Sakura nodded, recalling how they'd nearly been picked off by Zabuza's cunning and Haku's ice mirrors. We barely pulled through as it was. Naruto's hands clenched. He remembered stepping in with that demonic barrier and how the entire outcome hinged on everyone doing their part. So, you're saying we should practice team moves? Kakashi smiled beneath his mask. Exactly. Building synergy. And that means pairing up in ways we haven't done before. Sakura, you'll train with Sasuke. Naruto, you're with me. A spark of surprise lit Naruto's eyes. He usually ended up partnered with Sasuke or training alone. Kakashi, wanting personal time to tutor him, raised all sorts of questions, not the least about his demon powers. He shared a quick glance with Sasuke. The Uchiha's face remained neutral, but Naruto caught a hint of flickering annoyance. Sakura sighed. That's fine by me. So, sensei, what kind of exercises do we do? Quote, Kakashi pointed to the wide expanse of open field. First, you and Sasuke practice advanced taijutsu drills. No ninjutsu for an hour, purely hand-to-hand. That forces synergy and read reaction. After that, we'll rotate tasks. Sasuke let out a low grunt, stepping away with Sakura. Naruto watched them go. Part of him worried about the friction that might spark between them, but then again, maybe it'd do them good to figure out how to move in harmony. As for him, he turned to Kakashi. So, what are we doing, sensei? Kakashi motioned for Naruto to follow him toward the tree line. We're going to test something. Your control over that unusual chakra you've awakened. I need to see how you handle it under structured conditions, not just in battle chaos. Naruto's heart hammered. You know about that. Kakashi rested a hand on Naruto's shoulder, voice oddly gentle. I watched you use it on the bridge, and again in smaller bursts. The Hokage trusts me to keep an eye on you, to ensure it doesn't harm you or the village. Naruto swallowed, aware that this could go in a very bad direction if Kakashi deemed him a threat. But the Jonin's tone was calm, not accusatory. With a nod, Naruto followed him deeper into the woods, where they found a small clearing dotted by large boulders. Start by channeling a small fraction of that chakra, Kakashi instructed. Show me how much you can manage without losing control. Taking a deep breath, Naruto closed his eyes and reached inward, carefully tapping into the dark reservoir. A subtle tingling spread through his limbs. Violet sparks danced along his forearms. Leaves and dust stirred around his feet, swirling in faint eddies. He opened his eyes, half expecting condemnation in Kakashi's face, but found only focused observation. Now gather it, condense it, and release a controlled burst at that rock, Kakashi said, pointing at a boulder the size of a small carriage. Naruto exhaled. Here goes. He formed a half-ram seal with one hand. Channeling the swirling power into his palm, he thrust it forward, unleashing a wave of blackish-purple energy. The boulder shook under the impact, then cracked down the middle, chunks collapsing in on themselves. He winced at a flash of pain behind his eyes, but the result was nowhere near as catastrophic as his efforts in the land of waves. He'd deliberately scaled it back, releasing just enough to pulverize the rock without blasting half the forest. Kakashi walked over to inspect the rubble, tapping one piece of stone with his foot. Impressive destructive force, and you maintained a tighter radius than before. Naruto relaxed fractionally. So, is that good? Kakashi looked at him, expression serious. It's progress, but I sense two distinct chakra as involved. Your normal chakra and this other demonic aura. The more they intertwine, the more dangerous it might become if you lose focus. We need to refine your ability to keep them separate or fuse them in a controlled way. Naruto nodded eagerly. I've tried a few times on my own, but it's tricky. It's like the demon power wants to overshadow my regular chakra sometimes, especially when I'm emotional. Precisely why we're here, Kakashi said. We'll run structured drills. Step by step, you'll learn to channel precise amounts without letting it surge out. They spent the next hour going through different exercises. Small blasts at multiple targets, shaping the energy into an arc around a tree trunk, even attempting to infuse a clone with a fraction of the demonic aura. Each trial revealed Naruto's strengths and weaknesses. His raw power was undeniable, but controlling it took constant mental discipline. More than once, he nearly overcharged a blast, forcing Kakashi to intervene with a firm, steady, Naruto. Fatigue set in. Sweat poured down Naruto's face. His limbs felt heavy, as if that dark energy taxed him in ways normal chakra usage didn't. At the same time, a part of him relished the challenge. He wanted to prove he could master this, not just rely on panic surges in battle. Kakashi called for a break. Naruto sank against a tree, chest heaving. The Jonin crouched nearby, handing him a canteen. Sip slowly. You don't want to shock your system. Naruto took a grateful swig. Thanks. So, do you think I can use it safely during the Chunin exams? Kakashi's lone eye studied him. Potentially. But remember, the exams aren't just about raw might. If you can show refined skill even if it's with unusual chakra, that might impress the proctors. However, if you go wild and endanger other candidates, it'll backfire. Naruto grimaced, thinking of all the possible scenarios. A chaotic battle royal, one-on-one matches, infiltration by rival villages. Right, I'll do my best not to blow everyone up. Kakashi's gaze lingered on him. Good, because I suspect the exams will be more complicated than usual. With tensions rising among the nations, we can't afford any catastrophic displays. Understood. He nodded. Something about Kakashi's tone suggested hidden knowledge about political undercurrents. But Naruto didn't press. He had enough on his plate with demon power management. They rejoined Sakura and Sasuke in the main field. Both looked sweaty and worn from intense taijutsu sparring, but Sasuke's expression was particularly sour, maybe from the repeated corrections and forced teamwork exercises. If he'd heard the echo of Naruto's blasts in the forest, he didn't mention it. Kakashi asked them to run a final group drill. Each duo had to capture a bell from the sensei without using lethal force. This time, however, Naruto and Sasuke were forced to coordinate while Sakura played support, setting traps and illusions. After minutes of frantic pursuit aided by Kakashi's slippery escapes, they managed to corner him with a feint from Naruto's clones and a well-timed tackle by Sasuke. When they finally snagged the bell, they tumbled in a heap, panting. Kakashi laughed softly, awarding them a nod of approval. Better synergy. That's what I wanted to see. Sasuke rolled off Naruto, scowling but not quite as venomous. I only got that last angle because Naruto's clone forced you to dodge. Quote, Naruto, sprawled on the grass, stared up at the sky. He felt an odd sense of camaraderie bloom. They were all battered, exhausted, but alive and improving. The faint tension in Sasuke's voice hinted he might grudgingly accept that Naruto's help was beneficial. Sakura stepped over, offering them each a bottle of water with a relieved smile. Kakashi signaled the end of training. Go home, rest. We'll likely receive official notice about the exams soon. Don't slack off. They dispersed, each heading different directions. Naruto lingered for a moment, collecting his thoughts. A day of structured training with that demon power had left him more confident and more aware of how far he had to go. He also couldn't ignore Sasuke's simmering rivalry. Sooner or later, that tension might explode. Ellipsis. News of the Chunin exams spread through the village over the next few days. Posters appeared on bulletin boards, announcing the date. Genin squads whispered excitedly, calculating who might pass. Rumors about rival villages grew wilder. The Sand's monstrous Jinchuriki, the Sound's mysterious new hidden techniques, the Cloud's rumored infiltration specialists. Naruto spent the time alternating between short sessions with Kakashi and additional solitary training. Whenever he got bored, he'd wander the village, crossing paths with a variety of friends, acquaintances, and onlookers. Hinata appeared once, timidly offering to spar. They ended up just exchanging a few gentle strikes, which left her blushing and Naruto feeling awkwardly flattered. He also encountered Tenten at a weapons shop. The bun-haired weapons specialist offered a quick demonstration of her scroll-based summoning, showcasing her agility with knives and kunai. Naruto admired her skill, returning the demonstration by summoning a single orb of violet energy but quickly dissipated it, not wanting to alarm her. She seemed intrigued rather than scared, praising him for thinking outside standard ninjutsu. They parted with a mutual promise to spar properly someday. The days passed in a flurry of half-playful, half-intense training. Each night, Naruto would collapse in his apartment, sometimes dreaming of the demon fortress, sometimes of the wave of applause he hoped to earn by becoming the champion of the exams. It was a mixture of ambition and dread. Eventually, the official announcement arrived. All rookie genin teams who wished to participate were to meet at the academy for a preliminary orientation. Naruto felt a jolt of excitement surge through him when Kakashi handed him the slip of paper. Sasuke's dark eyes flickered with interest too, and Sakura looked more composed but no less determined. They approached the academy as a trio, weaving through the hustle of other young shinobi. Ino winked at Naruto from across the courtyard, calling Ichiri, "Don't you dare lose early, okay?" Shikamaru yawned and ambled along with Choji, complaining about the whole affair being too troublesome. Team 10, Team 8, Team 7 they all mingled near the entrance, a certain tension in the air. The Chunin exams had begun. Naruto noticed an unfamiliar presence. 3 foreign genin wearing the sans forehead protectors. The one in the middle, a red-haired boy with a large gourd strapped to his back, radiated an eerie pressure that made Naruto's stomach lurch. Gaara, he read the rumors. A Jinchuriki who'd never been injured in battle. Naruto's eyes narrowed with curiosity and something akin to excitement. So that's the guy everyone's talking about. He felt the demon aura stir faintly, almost as if his own monstrous side recognized another. For a split second, their gazes locked. Gaara's expression was unreadable, but Naruto sensed something lethal simmering. Sakura tugged on his sleeve, breaking the moment. "Come on, we need to head inside for the orientation." He nodded, swallowing the odd sensation. Something about Gaara's aura felt familiar in a twisted way. He might be the biggest threat. But Naruto couldn't let fear overshadow his resolve. He had his own monstrous power to tame. They stepped into the academy corridors, joining the throng heading upstairs. Whispers darted through the crowd. Rumors of the Sound Shinobi, talk of advanced Hyuga clan members from Konoha, mention of the Ino Shikacho trio's synergy. Everywhere Naruto turned, eyes were filled with ambition or anxiety. At the top floor, 2 older genin tried pulling a genjutsu trick, disguising the sign for the 3rd floor. Naruto half laughed at the attempt, and Sasuke called them out. It led to a brief altercation with a tall boy in black spandex and thick eyebrows Rock Lee who brazenly challenged Sasuke to a spar. The intensity was ridiculous, but typical of pre-exam jitters. Naruto watched with mild amusement as Sasuke declined for the moment, citing the orientation start time. Finally, they reached the designated room. A hush fell as soon as they walked in. Rows of young shinobi, dozens of them turned to size up the new arrivals. Naruto felt a pang of intimidation, quickly masked by bravado. He recognized many from Konoha, but also plenty of unfamiliar faces from the sand, the sound. Maybe even the grass or waterfall. An instructor up front, an aloof-looking man with a scar across his face, stepped forward, clearing his throat. "Welcome, everyone, to the Chunin exams, first stage. I am Ibiki Morino, your proctor. Before we begin, you should know this isn't a game. Failure can mean permanent injury or even death. If you're not prepared to accept that risk, leave now." A ripple of tension traveled through the assembled genin, but no one moved. Naruto's heart pounded, but he refused to give in to fear. He'd been close to death in Wave Country, he wasn't turning back now. Ibiki nodded at their silence. "Good. Then we'll start with a written test. Each of you will draw a random seat. No talking, no cheating. Any violation leads to immediate disqualification. Understood?" Groans and sighs erupted around the room. A written test wasn't what most expected from a high-stakes ninja exam. Naruto felt a bead of sweat trickle down his temple. He was never the best with pen and paper tests. But he had no choice. He steeled himself, following the instructions to take a seat. As the tension mounted, Naruto felt that stirring in his gut again, the demon aura reacting to the stress. He forced it down, ignoring the fleeting temptation to cheat with his power. This exam was bigger than a grade on a test. It was a step toward proving he could be more than a demon vessel, more than an anomaly. He wanted recognition, respect, and the chance to carry Konoha's will of fire on his own terms. He grabbed his pen. Ibiki began distributing the test papers, gaze cold and unreadable. The entire room of genin braced themselves, aware this was just the beginning of a crucible that would separate them into potential future Chunin or failures who might be forced to confront their own weaknesses in the harshest of ways. Naruto tightened his grip, a resolute flicker in his eyes. Whatever trials lay ahead, be it cunning-ridden tests, sabotage from rival villages, or the risk of unleashing that monstrous power, he would face them head-on. The memory of Tezuna's grateful tears, Haku's sorrow, and the swirl of dark energy under his skin fueled him. He took a deep breath. Bring it on. Chapter End. Chapter 5. Ibiki Morino's harsh gaze swept across the crowded exam room, taking in the sea of anxious genin seated at their desks. Outside, the morning sun cast angled beams through tall windows, bathing the space in uneasy light. The first stage of the Chunin exams was about to begin, and tension clung to the air like a dense fog. Naruto Uzumaki sat in the middle row, arms folded across his chest. A pen lay on the desk before him along with a thin test paper, covered in devilishly complicated questions about advanced ninja theory and tactics. He squinted at the script, his mind already spinning. "No jutsu can help me figure this stuff out," he muttered under his breath. He felt the distinct, subtle pressure of Ibiki's presence at the front like a hawk circling above a field mouse. Instinctively, Naruto also sensed something stirring inside him, that dark well of demonic energy. The same aura that gave him unstoppable power in battle now twitched with interest, as if wondering if it could help him cheat. But Naruto tamped it down. He had to rely on actual cunning, not raw force. Sasuke's paw across the room. Sasuke Uchiha glanced sideways at the line of fellow test-takers. He recognized many from the academy. Ino's distinctive blonde ponytail, Shikamaru's bored expression, Hinata's anxious fiddling with her fingers. Further off, some Amino. As newcomers, those strange sound ninja wearing beige wraps, the red-haired sand ninja with a gourd Gaara, and others he didn't recognize. Focus, Sasuke, he told himself. The test demanded knowledge most genin didn't have. That meant the real trick was to glean answers from other participants without getting caught by the proctors. Already, a few shinobi had tried to cheat too blatantly and got escorted out in shame. He spotted Naruto in the middle row, hunched over his paper, pen barely moving. The dobi looks lost, Sasuke thought, though not unkindly. He half expected Naruto to do something rash any second. Back to Naruto. Staring at question number 3, some insane formula about infiltration patterns. Naruto's mind spun. Despite everything, he just didn't have this knowledge. Could I maybe sense the answers? The demonic voice in the back of his mind teased him to push chakra outward, read the pulses of energy from people around him. But the proctors were cunning. Any abnormal spike would be noticed. Gritting his teeth, he tried to eavesdrop on the faint scribbles around him. A pair of seats ahead, Sakura sat with her brow furrowed but pen gliding. She must know some of this stuff. If only he had a safe angle to see. A muffled yelp from the far side of the room broke his concentration. One of the sound ninja lurched, drawing attention. A proctor swooped in, barked at him for suspicious movements, and disqualified him on the spot. The tension ratcheted up. Naruto's knuckles went white around his pen. One false move and he'd be out, maybe they'd be out, if the entire team was penalized. He looked up at the clock. 10 minutes had ticked by, but he had nothing written. Panic rose in his throat like bile. Have Ino Yamanaka, seated a few rows back, Ino had used her family's secret technique to discreetly glean answers from Sakura. She typed the solutions onto her paper with surprisingly little guilt. Sakura's ridiculously studious, after all, she mused. Yet even as she jotted down each new line, a part of her mind wondered about Naruto. She could see him from this vantage. his posture stiff, eyes darting everywhere. She half worried he'd do something idiotic or loud and blow the entire test. Come on, knucklehead, keep it cool. She wasn't sure why she cared so much, but she found herself hoping he'd pass, that she'd see that broad grin of his in the next stage. The 10th question. After a grueling 40 minutes, most genin had scratched out partial answers or cunningly cheated. Ibiki's deep voice cut through the silence. Time for the 10th question. But before I give it, let's go over the new rules. He scanned the room, a cruel twist to his lips. You only get one chance at this question. If you answer wrong, you'll never be allowed to take the Chunin exams again. Outrage and fear erupted. Several shinobi stood, demanding an explanation. Ibiki calmly explained the hopeless question policy. If they quit now, they could try again next year. But if they stayed and got it wrong, they'd remain forever at genin rank, forbidden from future attempts. Naruto felt his stomach turn to ice. This was insane. All around him, genin wavered, some trembling in indecision. A few, including some older rookies, cursed under their breath and stood to leave. They surrendered their chance, unwilling to risk it all. Sasuke watched with stony silence, determination in his eyes. Sakura bit her lip, knuckles pale on the edge of her desk. Naruto's heart pounded. If he failed, he'd never become Hokage, never truly protect anyone. And yet, the fear pressed in, an oppressive weight that threatened to snuff out his resolve. He clenched his fists, fingernails biting into his palms. No, he refused to back down. A memory flashed. Chizuna's grateful face, the shimmer of demonic chakra saving them on the bridge. He had to move forward. Whether it was his own dream or the vow he felt in the depths of that demon aura, retreat wasn't an option. Slamming his palm on the desk, Naruto leapt to his feet. I'm not quitting, he shouted. His voice echoed in the hush, head swiveling in shock. I don't care if I stay a genin forever. I'll still be Hokage someday. Bring on your stupid question. A ripple of stunned silence pulsed through the room. Then a few genin smirked, newly emboldened. Sasuke's lips twitched in grudging approval. Sakura exhaled a shaky breath. Ino stifled a laugh, thinking, that's so Naruto. Ibiki's smile widened. Then I guess nobody else is leaving. Silence. No one else rose to go. Well done. Because the real purpose of these questions, as to test your determination under extreme pressure. Confusion flared among the participants. Ibiki revealed that the written exam was designed to weed out those without the guts to handle critical intel gathering missions. The final question was never a question at all, just a challenge to see who'd fold. Congratulations, Ibiki concluded, arms folded over his broad chest. You all passed the first stage. Cheers erupted. Naruto collapsed into his chair with a huge grin, relief flooding him. Beside him, Sakura looked ready to throttle him for scaring her with that outburst, but also thankful she hadn't quit. Sasuke let out a soft huff of relief, though his face remained cool. A sudden entrance. Crash. The window shattered, glass spraying across the floor. A woman in a tan overcoat soared in, flipping gracefully before landing at the front. Bold red eyes, a mesh bodysuit beneath that coat, and a wild grin. Mitarashi Anko, the second proctor. Enough celebrating. She barked. I'm Anko, your next examiner. This is no time to catch your breath. Her dramatic entrance left half the genin gawking in shock, Naruto among them. Anko flashed a predatory smile. You'll move on to the forest of death. And trust me, it lives up to the name. Ibiki sighed, stepping aside. All yours, he mumbled, as if used to her antics. Anko pointed a finger around the room. Those who can't handle it, quit now. The rest of you, gather at training ground 44 by sunrise tomorrow. With that, she turned in a swirl of her coat and leapt back out the window, leaving everyone reeling. Sasuke's paw after the test. Sasuke walked side by side with Naruto and Sakura, weaving through corridors now abuzz with genin chatter. He listened to the chaotic conversation about Anko's mania and the rumored horrors of the forest of death. He said little, but inside, excitement warred with anxiety. The second stage might give me a chance to prove myself, he thought. But I also remember Orochimaru, one of the Sannin rumored to be lurking these days. A chill passed through him at the memory of that name. Rumors, whispers, but that was unconfirmed. For now, He'd focus on the actual exam. He noticed Naruto's bright grin, unstoppable and bold, and felt a twist in his gut. That power of his, where will it lead him? Sasuke's jaw tightened, half in rivalry, half in reluctant respect. Nighttime brief respite. Word spread that all participants had the night to rest before entering the Forest of Death at dawn. Naruto left the academy grounds, mind buzzing with the day's events. He was proud of how he'd refused to back down. But the next stage loomed large. From rumors alone, the forest was crawling with giant predators, poisonous insects, and cutthroat competition from rival genin teams. He drifted through Konoha's quieter backstreets, lost in thought about how best to use his demon aura in the next stage if at all. The risk was huge. Showcasing it too openly could lead to more scrutiny from Danzo and certain others. But if a life or death scenario arose, he wouldn't hesitate. An unexpected voice called him from behind. Naruto. He turned to see Hinata trotting up, a plastic bag of groceries in her arms. Under the glow of a nearby lantern, her pale eyes glimmered with concern. See, congratulations on passing the first exam, she said softly, cheeks flushed. Naruto beamed. Thanks, Hinata. Glad we both made it. He remembered seeing her name on the passing list. Team 8 Kiba, Shino, and Hinata had done well enough. She nodded, hesitating as though summoning courage. Please be careful in the Forest of Death tomorrow. It's said to be very dangerous. He scratched the back of his head, grin turning sheepish. I'll manage. I'm more worried about, other ninja who might not fight fair. But hey, if you're in there, you be careful too. A faint, shy smile curved her lips. I will. They stood in a brief, quiet moment, the tension of tomorrow's trials overshadowed by a subtle warmth. Naruto found himself noticing how gentle Hinata's presence was, a stark contrast to the harsh challenges ahead. Something in him, perhaps the old Naruto, perhaps a demon king's undercurrent, enjoyed her softness. The way she looked at him like he was already something special. She bowed, murmuring a quick goodbye, and hurried off. Naruto watched her go, a small, fond grin lingering. I have more people supporting me than I used to, he realized. It felt good, and it fueled his resolve for tomorrow's test. The Forest of Death begins. Dawn Training Ground 44. A massive iron gate loomed before dozens of genin squads, each wearing identical grim faces. Fog hung low over the tall grass, dew glistening on thick, gnarled trees beyond. It was a primeval sight. Towering trunks, dense foliage. The faint buzz of insects that promised countless hidden threats. Anko perched atop a metal guardrail, arms folded over her chest. Welcome to the Forest of Death, she declared. In this stage, each team will receive one scroll. Either heaven or earth. Your goal: collect the opposite scroll from another team and reach the tower in the center. You have 5 days. Survive any way you can. She paused, letting the gravity sink in. Attempted murder is allowed. There will be casualties. If you're squeamish, step out now. No one moved, though tension crackled like static. Naruto glanced at Sasuke and Sakura. Both nodded, faces set. They'd come too far to back out. Anko grinned viciously. Then sign these liability waivers. Once done, you'll be assigned your scroll at random, and the gates will open. Preparations. Team 7 stepped aside to quickly strategize. Kakashi wasn't there. This stage was strictly for genin, but they recalled his emphasis on teamwork. Naruto, Sasuke, and Sakura formed a tight circle. Sakura looked from one to the other, voice low. We don't know who has which scroll. We just have to assume we'll need to fight multiple teams. Let's decide a strategy to avoid unnecessary battles. Sasuke nodded. We should try stealth first. If an easy target presents itself, we take them down. But no reckless engagement. The forest is big, and we need to last up to 5 days. Conservation of energy is key. Naruto smirked, rummaging through his pouch. I'll use shadow clones for scouting, keep them minimal to not drain me too much. If we're cornered, we can fight back. I've got a few new moves I'm itching to try if needed. Sakura gave him a pointed look. Just don't blow the entire forest to bits, Naruto. He grinned sheepishly. Hey, no promises. In truth, he hoped to keep the demon power on standby, only unleashing it if absolutely necessary. The memory of Danzo's watchers told him to lay low. But if an enemy threatened his team, he wouldn't hold back. The gates open. After final checks, each team received a sealed scroll. Team 7 ended up with a Heaven Scroll. They stashed it in Sakura's pouch, reasoning she'd guard it carefully with her superior chakra control and awareness. Anko stood by a large console of levers. Ready, she pulled them with a flourish. Go. All around, massive gates cranked open, revealing narrow entrances into the dense forest. The genin squads dashed inside at once, some sprinting for the deep cover of towering foliage, others proceeding more cautiously. Team 7 went with a steady run, weaving through thick roots and clumps of brush. Within minutes, the forest swallowed them. The canopy overhead blotted out much of the daylight, leaving columns of filtered light and a near-constant hum of insects. Distant animal cries punctuated the gloom. Naruto's heart thrummed with excitement. Early encounters. They pressed forward for almost an hour, relying on Sasuke's Sharingan to detect traps, while Naruto occasionally summoned a single shadow clone to scout a perimeter. Sakura kept her senses sharp, reading subtle changes in the forest's atmosphere. Eventually, they stumbled on their first sign of conflict, a Clea ring littered with kunai and scorch marks. Two unconscious genin from the grass village lay near a broken log, their scroll nowhere to be seen. Sakura crouched beside them, checking for pulses. They're alive, but they got thrashed. Whoever did this took their scroll. Sasuke's gaze swept the area. Could be the sand or sound teams. They're rumored to be aggressive. Naruto's eyes narrowed. A faint, tingling sense brushed his demonic perception. It felt like a cold breeze, carrying ill intent. We need to move, he said. They skirted the clearing, proceeding deeper. But that uneasy feeling didn't fade. Instead, it got stronger. Soon, a swirling gust of wind tore through the canopy, scattering leaves around them. Orochimaru's appearance. Without warning, a towering figure emerged from the shish. Ado's a masked grass shinobi with unsettling eyes. The presence radiated malevolence so potent that Naruto's stomach twisted in knots. This is no normal genin, a voice in him screamed. Sasuke tensed. State your purpose. The figure merely smiled an eerie, almost reptilian grin. Purpose, only to weed out the unworthy. Then, in a sickening shift of limbs, the grass shinobi's face seemed to peel back, revealing pale skin and yellow snake-like eyes beneath. Orochimaru, he hissed softly. Sakura gasped, stepping back. Naruto's mind reeled. Orochimaru, a name whispered in fear throughout the village. One of the Sannin, a traitor to Konoha. What's he doing here? Orochimaru's gaze slid lazily over them, like a predator sizing up its next meal. I've come to observe the potential of certain seeds. Especially you, Sasuke Uchiha. He licked his lips, voice dripping with dark amusement. And you, Naruto Uzumaki, your chakra is quite intriguing as well. Sasuke gripped a kunai, knuckles white. Naruto's heart pounded. He knows about me. The attack. Orochimaru moved faster than any genin could follow. In a blink, he was upon them, forcing Sasuke and Naruto to scramble back. Sakura flung a volley of shuriken. But Orochimaru deflected them with a flick of his wrist. His presence alone felt suffocating, far beyond anything they'd faced, even surpassing Zabuza's menacing aura. Sasuke engaged first, launching a flurry of kunai laced with explosive tags. Orochimaru weaved between them as though dancing, ignoring minor blasts that shredded nearby branches. Naruto formed shadow clones to FL. Anked the rogue Sannin from multiple angles, but Orochimaru batted them aside with a cruel laugh, the clones dispersing in clouds of smoke. Naruto clenched his teeth. The demon power inside him roiled, sensing the mortal peril. If there was ever a time to use it, but the risk soared. If he revealed too much, and Orochimaru discovered that strength, who knew what the snake-like ninja would do? Orochimaru's hand shot out, grabbing Sasuke by the collar mid-dodge. Sasuke gagged, feet dangling off the ground. So fragile, Orochimaru whispered. I need to mark you. A serpentine grin spread as he paired the horrifying cursed seal technique. Let him go. Naruto roared. He flung himself forward, calling on that swirling black-violet aura. A shimmering layer of demonic energy coated his arm as he aimed a devastating strike at Orochimaru's side. The blow connected with surprising force, sending Orochimaru staggering a few steps. The Sanin's eyes flared with intrigue rather than pain. Ah, so it's true, he purred, voice trembling with excitement. Such a unique chakra, more than just the 9 tails at work. Fascinating. He dropped Sasuke, who collapsed, gasping. Sakura rushed to Sasuke's side, eyes wide. Orochimaru turned his full attention on Naruto, lips parted in a hungry smile. Show me more. An unleashed power. Every instinct told Naruto to run, but he couldn't abandon his teammates. Heart hammering, he channeled another surge of demon energy, letting it pulse through his body. Just enough to hold him off. The forest around them groaned, leaves rustling as if weighed down by the pressure. Orochimaru's grin widened. He formed hand seals at lightning speed, summoning Rashomon. A gigantic, demonic gate erupted from the ground, blocking Naruto's path and sending shockwaves that nearly knocked him off his feet. Naruto leapt back, forming clones to vault him over the gate's top. As he soared above it, he spotted Orochimaru extending his neck like a snake, jaws unhinging to clamp down on him. The grotesque sight made Naruto's blood run cold. He twisted, releasing a blast of violet energy from his palm, forcing Orochimaru to retract. Below, Sasuke fought to regain composure. His eyes lit with the Sharingan. Tracking Orochimaru's movements, he launched a series of fire jutsu, combining them with well-aimed shuriken, while Sakura provided covering support. Yet the gulf in skill was enormous. A swirl of dread settled in Naruto's stomach. We're outmatched. Even with the demon aura, Orochimaru was toying with them. Another wave of that monstrous presence pressed down, and Naruto felt the energy inside him surge dangerously. If he tapped deeper, he risked losing control. Sasuke's stand. Suddenly, Sasuke roared, flinging aside caution. Perhaps it was frustration, or a primal survival instinct. He performed a quick sequence of seals for the great fireball jutsu, inhaling. A massive sphere of flame whooshed across the clearing, forcing Orochimaru to pivot. The rogue Sannin leapt nimbly, but the fire scorched his robe, revealing pale arms underneath. Sasuke used that moment to dash forward, kunai flashing. Orochimaru's eyes gleamed. He sidestepped, driving a hand at Sasuke's shoulder. But Sasuke flipped mid-air, hurling more shuriken. For a second, it seemed the Uchiha might land a real hit. Then Orochimaru's hand lashed out with inhuman speed, grabbing Sasuke's wrist. Enough. Chakra flared around Orochimaru's fingers, branding Sasuke's neck with 3 tomo that glowed an eerie purple, the cursed seal. A strangled scream tore from Sasuke's throat as the mark etched into his skin. Energy thrashing. Orochimaru dropped him, smirking in satisfaction. Now your power will grow, or destroy you. Either way, I win. Naruto's fury. Sasuke. Sakura cried, rushing to his side as he collapsed, body racked by spasms of pain. Naruto's vision blurred with rage and fear. Another wave of demonic chakra roiled, flooding him with the urge to obliterate this threat. A faint echo of Anos Voldigod's unstoppable might whispered in his mind, "End him." The entire clearing trembled under the force of Naruto's aura, swirling leaves in a vortex. Orochimaru's smile faltered, if only for a second, as he felt the weight of that presence. "What are you, Naruto Uzumaki?" Naruto's eyes flashed a deep violet. "I'm the one who's gonna protect my friends." With that, he formed a single seal, focusing the churn of black-violet energy into his right hand. A sphere of crackling darkness coalesced more compact than his previous blasts. The air hissed, every hair on his neck standing on end. He lunged forward, driving the sphere at Orochimaru's chest. The Sannin's eyes widened with genuine excitement. He raised a palm wreathed in snake-like chakra, meeting Naruto's blow head-on. The impact was catastrophic. Energy rippled outward, knocking trees flat. The ground cracked in a wide radius. Orochimaru skidded back, a look of shock crossing his features as his arm sizzled from contact. Yet it wasn't enough to incapacitate him. He hissed, torn between pain and fascination. Naruto stumbled, breath ragged, that draining dizziness hitting him again. He'd poured too much into that strike, and he wasn't sure he could manage another. Orochimaru let out a low chuckle, apparently deciding to end the encounter on his own terms. "Yes, your potential is real. I'll be watching you too." He licked his lips in that unnerving way. "Do me a favor, survive." His body distorted, twisting away into the shadowed foliage. The last echoes of his presence lingered like a toxic cloud. Aftermath. The clearing was a wreck. Chunks of earth and uprooted trees lay scattered. Sakura knelt beside Sasuke, who shuddered in pain, the cursed seal burning on his neck. Naruto staggered over, eyes reverting to their normal blue. Sakura's face was tear-streaked, voice trembling. What do we do? Sasuke. She couldn't finish, fear choking her words. Naruto pressed 2 fingers to Sasuke's pulse, fast and unsteady. But present. He's alive, Naruto said, relief surging. We just have to get him out of here or find a place to rest until he recovers. Sakura helped Naruto maneuver Sasuke's limp form onto his back. The Uchiha groaned, half-conscious, dark marks flickering around the curse. The team was battered, the forest around them ominously still. A swirl of guilt twisted in Naruto's gut. He'd unleashed more demonic power than ever, but still they nearly lost to Orochimaru. And now Sasuke bore a dreadful mark. Anger flared at his own shortcomings, tempered by worry for his teammate. A moment of vulnerability. They withdrew to a massive hollow tree trunk, large enough to provide partial shelter. Sakura set traps around the perimeter to ward off ambushes, while Naruto led Sasuke on a makeshift bedding of leaves. She began basic medical checks, though her knowledge was limited. Sasuke's face was ashen, sweat beading. Occasionally, his eyes fluttered open, revealing flickers of agony. He mumbled incoherently. Naruto stood guard, arms crossed, battling the sense of helplessness. Sakura's voice came soft but urgent. Naruto, if he doesn't stabilize, that mark might kill him. Or worse, take him over. Naruto swallowed hard. He forced a confident tone. We'll get through this. We just need time. Keep him comfortable. I'll watch for enemies. She hesitated, looking at him through tear-rimmed eyes. And you, are you okay after using that power? He forced a reassuring grin. Just tired. I'll manage. But inside, doubt gnawed at him. Orochimaru had recognized that. He possessed something beyond the 9 tails, and the ramifications felt enormous. If such a notorious villain took interest, would others follow? At least we survived. For now. Unwanted visitors. Their respite didn't last long. Soon, scuttling sounds echoed through the underbrush. Naruto tensed, scanning the darkness. Sakura grabbed a kunai, poised at Sasuke's side. Something approached, snapping branches. Emerging into the faint light came 3 ninja with the Sound Village's insignia. One of them, wearing a fur collar, smirked. We heard a big commotion. Looks like Orochimaru gave you a rough time. He eyed Sasuke's prone form. Noticing the mark. Oh, he left you a gift. Naruto clenched his jaw. We don't want a fight right now. The sound trio spread out, forming a loose triangle. We do. Hand over your scroll, or we'll finish what Orochimaru started. Sakura's grip on her kunai tightened, voice shaking slightly. Don't come any closer. Naruto felt the swirl of dread again. We're in no condition for another heavy fight. But if the sound team forced it, he'd have to stand his ground. He prepared to summon clones, ignoring the ache in his limbs. Unexpected aid. Before the sound ninja could pounce, a kunai whistled from the darkness, lodging at the fur collar ninja's feet. He jumped back, startled. A silhouette hopped down from a branch. Ino, accompanied by Shikamaru and Choji. Team 10. Ino planted her hands on her hips, expression bold. So you're the big bullies picking on an injured team. Not on our watch. Shikamaru sighed dramatically. You're always so troublesome, Ino. But I guess we can't let our classmates get slaughtered. Choji nodded, brandishing a bag of chips in one hand, though his round face was set in unusual determination. Naruto's chest flooded with relief. He shot Ino a quick, grateful look. She winked, tension coiled in her posture. The sound trio scowled at the sudden complication. They glanced between Team 7 and Team 10, then apparently dead. It was not worth risking a 6-on-3 fight. With a sneer, they backed off. We'll find easier prey, one said, though his glare promised a future reckoning. Moments later, the sound team melted into the trees. Brief alliance. Once the sound ninja vanished, Ino ran forward, eyes flicking over Sasuke's condition. What the hell happened here? That mark on Sasuke's neck. Naruto exhaled a shaky breath. Orochimaru showed up. Shikamaru's normally lazy eyes went wide. Orochimaru. Are you serious? Anxiety etched his face. Even Choji looked stunned. Sakura managed a nod. Yes, he did something to Sasuke. We don't know how to treat it. Ino set her jaw, glancing at Naruto. We can't stay here long. Others will sense the disturbance. But maybe we can find a safer spot for you to rest. You guys look like you've been through the ringer. Shikamaru scratched the back of his neck. We have our own mission to pass this exam, but maybe we can spare a bit of time to help you relocate. Safety in numbers, right? Despite his cautious words, Naruto knew Shikamaru had a good heart. He took a moment to swallow his pride. I thank you. We appreciate it. They carefully shifted Sasuke, who moaned but remained unconscious. Ino and Sakura led the group to a less damaged section of the forest, where the canopy was thicker. Along the way, they encountered no serious threats, likely because other teams were busy hunting easier targets or had fled the area after sensing Orochimaru's monstrous chakra. Hidden clearing. Finally, they reached a dense thicket near a shallow stream. Shikamaru used High-S shadow imitation jutsu to help set up a perimeter alarm, while Choji tested local flora for potential food. Ino and Sakura tended to Sasuke. Naruto volunteered to stand watch, scanning the area from a high branch. As the night wore on, the forest's constant buzz and hum pressed in. Sasuke's condition stabilized, though the cursed mark pulsed ominously. Team 10 lingered a while longer before Amaru declared they'd best move on to find their own scroll. Ino exchanged a quiet look with Naruto, caution and concern shining in her eyes. Stay safe, she said. Then, with a playful bravado, she added, don't let me down. I expect you guys to still be alive by the end of this. Naruto smirked. Count on it. With that, Team 10 slipped away, leaving Team 7 alone once more. The relief of the alliance was temporary, but it gave Naruto a renewed sense that they weren't alone in this brutal test. A haunting night. Dusk bled into true darkness quickly under the thick canopy. The second night in T. Forest of Death was always the deadliest, as teams grew desperate for scrolls. Naruto set traps around their makeshift camp, eyes gritty from exhaustion, but determined to protect Sasuke and Sakura. Sakura dozed, hugging her knees, unwilling to sleep more than a few minutes at a time. Sasuke's breathing was irregular but gradually less pained. Naruto hovered near him, torn between wanting to comfort his friend and feeling guilty that he hadn't stopped Orochimaru sooner. At one point, Sasuke stirred, half opening his eyes. Naruto, he rasped. What about the mark? Naruto quickly knelt beside him. Just rest, you'll be okay. We'll find a way to fix it once we're out of here. Sasuke grimaced. So weak. I was powerless. Darkness flickered in his gaze, overshadowed by the curse's burning lines. Naruto squeezed his shoulder gently, unsure how to respond. For the first time, Sasuke's pride was truly shattered and it showed in the raw edge of his voice. They said no more. Sasuke sank back into a troubled sleep, leaving Naruto with a swirl of conflicting emotions: pity, worry, and a sliver of fear about how this experience would change Sasuke. The last push. Morning found them battered but alive. They still needed to get an Earth Scroll to pair with their Heaven Scroll. On the third day, after creeping along stream banks and dodging roving ninjas, they finally came across an isolated Rain team. With stealth and a well-coordinated ambush, Naruto's clones distracting from one side, Sakura's illusions from another, and a newly reawakened, albeit weak Sasuke, landing the final blow, they snatched the Earth Scroll. Sasuke, panting, clutched his cursed neck. Let's go. We have both scrolls. They wasted no time heading for the tower at the center. With each step, Sasuke's condition wavered, but his willpower refused to let him collapse again. Sakura hovered protectively, and Naruto scanned for threats, the demon power stirring in case they needed an emergency defense. Tower arrival. At last, they emerged from the forest's dense perimeter into a wide clearing. In the center stood a tall tower with gray stone walls, a battered old gate leading inside. A few scattered teams had arrived before them, some nursing wounds, others looking exhausted. Relief washed over Naruto. They'd made it. They slipped through the gate into a grand entry hall. A line of proctors awaited, confirming scrolls and identities. Sakura presented both Heaven and Earth scrolls. The proctor nodded, handing them a slip of paper that read "Passed." Naruto let out a loud whoop, ignoring the stares from other teams. Sasuke stumbled slightly, leaning on Sakura. Naruto rushed over to help, ignoring his own fatigue. A medical attendant beckoned them to a side area for a checkup. "He doesn't look good," she muttered, eyeing the curse mark. "We'll do what we can." Naruto and Sakura hovered anxiously while the medics took Sasuke away for brief examination. The swirl of relief at passing the second stage warred with the dread about Orochimaru's meddling. Naruto forced himself to breathe. "We got through. That's what matters now." A tense reunion. Exiting the medical station, Naruto spotted some familiar faces in the tower's common area. Kiba boasting about defeating a grass team, Shino quietly analyzing a sealed scroll, and Hinata beaming at Team 8's success. Gaara stood off to the side with his siblings, unnervingly silent. He caught Naruto's eye for a moment, no words, just a slight twitch of a brow, as if acknowledging a fellow monster. Naruto shivered at the unspoken challenge there. Ino, Shikamaru, and Choji waved from across the room, relief visible on their faces. Ino's eyes flicked to Sasuke's bandaged neck. She lifted her brows questioningly, and Naruto offered a half-hearted shrug. She frowned, likely worried for them, but the swirl of exam participants soon jostled them apart. Finally, the proctors called for attention. "Congratulations to all who survived the Forest of Death," said an official wearing the leaf's symbol. "We will begin preliminary matches soon to reduce the number of contestants before the final stage." Groans and murmurs rippled through the exhausted genin. Naruto felt a new wave of adrenaline. Already, they'd just staggered out of a lethal forest. Now they had to fight each other in elimination matches. He glanced at Sasuke, who stood stiffly, sweat on his brow. The cursed seal was hidden by bandages, but Naruto sensed it simmering beneath the surface. Sakura hovered near him, worry etched in every line of her face. And Naruto clenched his fists, silently vowing to stand by them no matter what came next. The second stage might be over, but the real trials, the preludes to new rivalries, alliances, and revelations about his demon power were only beginning. Chapter End. Chapter 6. The towering stone walls of the Chunin exam tower felt colder than usual, despite the press of bodies crammed into its main hall. Genin from various nations gathered in tense clusters. Adrenaline still pounding from surviving the Forest of Death. Naruto Uzumaki, Sakura Haruno, and Sasuke Uchiha stood side by side near one wall, catching their breath under the harsh fluorescent lights. Only hours had passed since they secured the second scroll and dragged themselves inside, battered and exhausted. A hush fell when a leaf official in a flak jacket stepped forward, clearing his throat. "All of you who made it through the second stage, line up. The Hokage and proctors have an announcement." Naruto clenched his fists. His eyes cut to Sasuke, who leaned on the wall with a pained grimace. Dark blotches stained his neck where Orochimaru's cursed seal pulsed beneath bandages. Sakura hovered close, worried. Outside, thunder rumbled, an odd atmospheric shift in a normally clear Konohade. He muttered, "You sure you're good to stand?" Sasuke's jaw tightened. "I'm not about to keel over in front of everyone." Naruto nodded, respect mingled with concern. Typical Sasuke. Still, the memory of that monstrous infiltration by Orochimaru refused to fade. Naruto's demon power had surged, clashing with the Sannin, and even that hadn't been enough to do more than stun him. A tension coiled in Naruto's stomach, reminding him how many eyes might be on him now: Danzo's, Orochimaru's, maybe others who sensed a deeper force than just the Nine Tails. He pushed the thought aside as the third Hokage stepped forward, leaning on his staff. An older man in a flak vest stood next to him, Hayate Gecko, if Naruto recalled correctly, the proctor for the next stage. The Hokage's worn but kind gaze traveled over the assembled teams. "Congratulations on surviving the Forest of Death," he said in a calm, grave tone. "Before the final stage of the Chunin exams, we must reduce the number of participants. Hence, the preliminaries, a series of one-on-one matches. Any who feel unable to continue due to injuries may withdraw now." A ripple of murmurs went through the crowd. Naruto glanced around, noticing some battered teams from smaller villages. At least 2 squads, trembling from wounds or exhaustion, stepped out, forfeiting. Kabuto Yakushi, an older leaf genin, also raised his hand, claiming injuries from the forest. Naruto frowned. Something about that guy always felt off. But he vanished into the throng, departing quietly. Anyone else? The Hokage prompted. When no further withdrawals emerged, he gave a nod to Hayate. Very well, let's begin. Hayate coughed into his fist, a subtle rasp to his breathing. This stage is straightforward. We'll randomly select 2 names for each match. The loser is immediately disqualified. The winner advances to the main tournament. Understood. Naruto felt his pulse spike with excitement and a thread of apprehension. Now it was time to fight fellow rookies from not just Konoha, but also the sand, the sound, the mist, and lesser-known villages. He scanned the crowd, meeting Ino's eye for a split second. She gave him a nod. A fierce gleam their confidence. Encouragement. Sakura, at his side, inhaled slowly. Even Hinata, across the hall with Team 8, locked eyes with him briefly, offering a tiny, timid smile. Names for the first match will now be displayed, Hayate said, gesturing to a digital panel overhead. A tense wait. Naruto and his team found a spot along the balcony rail. Overhead, the digital screen flickered through a cascade of letters, eventually landing on Sasuke Uchiha vs. Yoroi Akato. Sakura's breath caught. Sasuke's going first. Naruto shot his teammate a worried glance. Sasuke's face was stony, but Naruto could see the subtle tremor in his posture, residual pain from the curse seal. Kakashi, who stood behind them, placed a hand on Sasuke's shoulder. Remember what we discussed, Kakashi said in a low voice. If the curse mark flares, focus on your own chakra, don't rely on that power it might tempt you with. Sasuke nodded stiffly. He turned to Naruto and Sakura, giving them a look that seemed to say, "Don't interfere, I can handle it." Then he leapt down to the arena floor, posture tight but unwavering. Hayate motioned for the fight to begin. Yoroi, a short man with tinted glasses and messy hair, smirked. "I've heard rumors about the Uchiha. Let's see if you live up to them." Sasuke said nothing, sliding into a combat stance. Naruto leaned over the railing, silent, adrenaline burning. The hush in the hall felt electric. Even Gaara, standing across the balcony with his sand siblings, seemed mildly interested. Clash. The 2 competitors blurred into motion. Yoroi closed in, fingers crackling with a faint chakra absorption technique. Sasuke twisted away, snapping out a kick that Yoroi blocked. A flurry of blows followed, each expertly countered. But Naruto saw the strain in Sasuke's face. He's fast, but not at full power. The cursed seal was likely sapping Sasuke's stamina. Kakashi watched from the upper level with narrowed eyes. Yoroi feinted left, hand grazing Sasuke's arm. Sasuke hissed, stumbling as he felt his chakra drain. Yoroi laughed harshly. "I'll take all your energy if you let me touch you again." Sasuke dropped low, launching a sweeping kick. This time, he found an opening, knocking Yoroi off balance. With a desperate surge, Sasuke formed a single seal, Shishi Renden. The lion combo, a flurry of mid-air attacks that ended with a punishing blow slamming Yoroi to the ground. Yoroi collapsed, coughing blood. Hayate stepped in, verifying he was unconscious. Winner. Sasuke Uchiha. A roar of approval erupted. Naruto whooped, relief surging. But Sasuke wavered after the victory, nearly dropping to his knees. Kakashi flashed down, hooking an arm around him. In that moment, Naruto glimpsed a dark tinge crawling up Sasuke's neck, only to retreat as if scolded. Sakura let out a shaky sigh. Thank goodness. Naruto glanced at Kakashi, who escorted Sasuke out. The Jonin was likely to seal the curse mark, just as he did in canon, thou. We won't dwell too deeply on that here. For now, Sasuke was safe, or safe enough. Early matches unfold. With Sasuke gone to the infirmary for immediate treatment, Naruto and Sakura remained on the balcony to watch the next bouts. The screen flashed new names. 1. Zaku Abumi vs. Shino Aburame. 2. Konkuro vs. Tsurugi Masumi. 3. Sakura Haruno vs. Ino Yamanaka. Naruto perked up at that last one, glancing at Sakura. She gulped, color draining from her cheeks. Then she mustered a determined nod. No more hesitating. In the meantime, they witnessed Shino systematically outwit Zaku's sound-based attacks, orking him to surrender under a swarm of insects that threatened to devour his chakra. Konkuro used hidden puppet tricks to quickly subdue his opponent. Tenten from Team Guy faced off with Tamari from the sand, resulting in Tenten's unfortunate defeat as Temari's wind fan proved a hard counter to Tenten's projectile arsenal. Each match was swift but intense, leaving the losers battered. Finally, it was Sakura's turn. Sakura vs. Ino. Both kunoichi dropped into the arena. The childhood friends turned rivals squared off. Naruto leaned over the rail, torn. He had a soft spot for both. In the last few days, he'd grown closer to Ino, appreciating her feisty humor and supportive streak. But Sakura was his teammate, someone who'd grown leaps and bounds since the academy. Ino tossed her long blonde hair back. "Let's settle this, forehead." Quote. Sakura's eyes flashed. "Bring it, pig." Hayate signaled them to begin. They lunged at each other, fists colliding with surprising ferocity. Naruto's eyes widened. Sakura's improved a lot. She's not just the bookish girl from before. Indeed, Sakura displayed sharper taijutsu than Ino had expected, forcing Ino to retreat and reconsider. The match turned psychological when Ino used a cunning ruse to slice off her own hair, seemingly an act of desperation. But she shaped the severed hair into chakra strings, setting up her mind transfer jutsu. In a blink, Ino's consciousness soared into Sakura's body, halting Sakura mid-dash. Naruto leaned forward, heart hammering. Sakura. The possessed Sakura spun, raising a trembling kunai toward her own throat. Ino smirked from inside Sakura's mind. "Sorry, billboard brow, but this is my chance to." She froze. Something inside Sakura resisted. A swirl of raw willpower, bolstered by memories of training with Sasuke and Naruto, shattered Ino's possession. Ino's spirit snapped back into her own body, reeling from the backlash. Panting, both girls glared at each other. The next exchange was a simultaneous punch that sent them crashing to the floor. They lay there, eyes spinning, until Hayate realized neither could continue. He declared it a draw, both were out. Naruto let out a breath he didn't realize he was holding. Relief and disappointment mingling. At least they're alive. On the floor, medics helped the unconscious kunoichi away. They fought their hearts out. Another round of surprises. The matches continued, each unveiling unique talents. Neji Hyuga's Byakugan overcame Hinata in a brutal clash, leaving Hinata coughing blood but refusing to yield until forced. Lee displayed his monstrous taijutsu against a sound ninja, wearing them down with blazing speed until victory was his, though he ended the fight with battered fists. Naruto gripped the railing, half entranced by the varied powers, half anxious to see if he'd be called soon. Meanwhile, that demon presence within him stirred, eager for battle. He pressed a hand to his stomach, forcibly calming the swirl of energy. "I only use it when I have to." At last, the panel flickered again. Naruto Uzumaki vs. Kiba Inuzuka. Naruto's adrenaline spiked. He flashed a grin. "Time to show what I've got." From across the way, Kiba smirked, flexing an arm. "You're going down, Naruto. I've been waiting for this." They hopped to the arena floor. The tension soared, as both were Konoha rookies known for loud personalities. Kiba's Ninken, Akamaru, barked at Naruto, tail wagging in challenge. Hayate lifted a hand. "Begin." Naruto vs. Kiba. Clash. Kiba wasted no time, launching forward with blinding speed. Fang over fang. He spun into a whirling drill shape, claws extended. Naruto sidestepped, nearly losing his footing as the attack carved a shallow trench in the floor. Regaining balance, Naruto formed a shadow clone to flank Kiba. But Kiba's sharp senses sniffed out the real one, tackling him from behind. They tumbled, fists flying. Naruto grunted, pinned under Kiba's raw strength. Akamaru jumped in, nipping at Naruto's ankles. "Knucklehead," Kiba taunted. "Ain't the same as messing around in class." Naruto let out a breathless laugh. "We'll see." He forcibly twisted, letting a thread of demonic aura pulse into his arm just out to enhance his strength for a second. He flung Kiba off, sending him skidding across the stone floor. Kiba's eyes widened. That was some insane strength. He licked his lips. "Akamaru, let's do it." The dog yipped in agreement, and Kiba fed him a soldier pill, turning Akamaru's fur a deep red. Kiba formed quick seals. Man-beast clone. Suddenly, there were two Kibas, each snarling with feral intent. They dashed in sync, each launching a fang over fang. The air whirled with twin drills of chakra. Naruto formed multiple shadow clones, scattering them in a wide arc. The collision was chaotic. Each spinning Kiba shredded through clones until smoke filled the arena. From the sidelines, Sakura, just revived from the medics' care, and others watched tensely. Ino, leaning on the railing, hissed under her breath, "Come on, Naruto." Through the haze, a single figure leapt upward. One of the Kibas lunged with a spinning slash, only to be met by Naruto's foot driving downward. Wham! The impact cancelled the transformation, revealing it was actually Akamaru who got kicked, yelping as he flew aside. The real Kiba snarled, aiming to catch Naruto off guard. He closed in from Naruto's blind spot, but Naruto anticipated it. Another pulse of that hidden power sharpened his senses, a phenomenon he was still learning to handle. He ducked just as Kiba soared overhead, flipping to land behind him. Direct showdown. Naruto's chest heaved. He considered unleashing a heavier demonic spell, but a part of him worried. Don't overshadow the entire exam. Instead, he used a fraction, enough to enhance his reflexes and chakra. Gathering swirling energy in his palm, though not quite the Rasengan, more a crude demonic chakra variant, he lunged. Kiba crossed his arms in defense. The blow connected, sending a shockwave that knocked him backward. He landed in a crouch, panting. "How the heck did you get so strong?" Naruto huffed. "Hard work and a few surprises." He dashed in again, fists raised. Their taijutsu exchange was fierce. Kiba tried to rely on his sense of smell to detect Naruto's feints, but Naruto's chakra felt muddled, as if laced with an alien presence that masked his movements. At last, Naruto spotted an opening. He slipped under Kiba's right hook and slammed his knee into Kiba's stomach. Kiba gasped, doubling over. A quick chop to the back of the neck ended it. Kiba crumpled. Akamaru, whimpering, crawled to his partner's side. Hayate stepped in. Kiba Inuzuka is unable to continue. Winner. Naruto Uzumaki. Cheers and claps rose. Naruto reeled with exhilaration, adrenaline roaring in his ears. He knelt to pat Akamaru gently on the head. "Sorry, buddy, you fought great." Then he grinned at Kiba's unconscious form. "Guess you'll have to keep training, dog breath." As medics carried Kiba away, Naruto jogged to the side, the demon energy still tingling in his veins. He took a few calming breaths, ignoring the subtle stares from some proctors who must have noticed his unusual chakra spikes. Gotta keep it cool. The Gaara factor. Only a couple fights remained. One of them included Gaara of the Sand, who faced Rock Lee. Naruto watched with mounting unease Lee's blazing speed. An incredible taijutsu impressed everyone, even as Gaara's sand shield deflected blow after blow. Ultimately, Gaara unleashed a horrifying wave of sand that crushed Lee's left arm and leg, leaving him unconscious and broken. The proctors barely stopped it from turning lethal. Naruto clenched his jaw. That guy's no joke. A flicker of the demon aura stirred, as if in warning. Gaara's emotionless eyes swept the stands, momentarily locking on Naruto. A chill ran up Naruto's spine. He recognized something monstrous in Gaara, perhaps another Jinchuriki, or a being harboring its own demonic might. He might be even more dangerous than Kiba guessed I was. Hayate confirmed Gaara's victory, prompting medics to rush Lee to the infirmary. Silence fell. The savage display underlined how real the threat was in these exams. Naruto exhaled shakily. This was only the prelims. After the battles, when the dust settled, only a handful of competitors remained. Naruto, Sasuke, Neji, Gaara, Shino, Temari, Kankuro, Shikamaru plus a few others. Kakashi returned with Sasuke, who now bore a fresh sealing tag over his curse mark. The Uchiha looked drained but defiant. The third Hokage addressed them all. From the balcony. Congratulations on passing the preliminaries. The final stage of the Chunin exams will take place in 1 month, allowing you time to train and prepare. You'll receive official match pairings shortly. Until then, rest, recover, and grow stronger. Naruto's mind whirled. A month. That's not much, but it's enough to polish my new powers, maybe find a teacher. He felt a surge of excitement, ignoring the twinge of worry about Orochimaru lurking somewhere in the shadows. Hayate stepped forward, cough rattling in his throat. Your final stage matchups will be determined now. A large display in the corner flickered on, listing pairs. 1. Naruto Uzumaki vs. Neji Hyuga. 2. Gaara vs. Sasuke Uchiha. 3. Shino Aburame vs. Kankuro. 4. Temari vs. Shikamaru Nara. One match slot seemed open for a competitor from the Sound who had advanced. But that didn't matter much to Naruto. He stared at the name next to his own, Neji Hyuga. The proclaimed prodigy, a genius who specialized in the gentle fist style. Naruto's heartbeat quickened. So I'm up against that jerk who hurt Hinata. Good. I owe him one. He remembered Hinata's terrified expression, how badly Neji had wounded her. A protective anger simmered in Naruto's chest. I'll show him that fate isn't set in stone. A month to train. After the official announcements, the examinees dispersed. The corridors buzzed with talk of who would train with whom. Naruto parted ways with Sasuke, who left under Kakashi's guidance likely for specialized curse seal management. Sakura, bruised from her match, was forced to see the medics again. That left Naruto in an odd limbo, no immediate sensei or plan. As he stepped outside the tower, the late afternoon sky glowed with pinkish hues. He inhaled, half expecting to see Danzo's agents or Orochimaru's minions lurking in the open fields. Instead, he saw only a few scattered groups, Ino waving goodbye to Shikamaru, Tenten quietly supporting a limping Lee, and Hinata leaning against a wall, catching her breath. He trotted toward Hinata. You okay? He recalled how brutally Neji had taken her down. She nodded shyly, eyes lowered. I'll recover. I just need rest. But I'm out of the exam. He scratched his head. Right, sorry. An awkward pause. Look, about Neji, he's strong, but I'm not scared. I'm gonna beat him. To his surprise, Hinata's face lit with a small, grateful smile. I believe you can. Something in those soft words emboldened Naruto. He nodded firmly. Get better soon, okay. Then, with a wave, he hurried off into the village. 1 month. Time to find a way to master this on power and come up with a strategy to beat Neji's Byakugan. Late evening. Ichiraku Ramen. In an attempt to calm his racing thoughts, Naruto made his way to Ichiraku for a post-battle meal. The savo, rye aroma of broth enveloped him as he slid onto a stool. Ayame greeted him warmly, and Chuki set about preparing a hearty bowl of miso ramen. Not long after, Ino strode in. Spotting Naruto, she plopped Ed onto the adjacent stool without preamble. Yo, champion, congrats on beating Kiba. He grinned between mouthfuls. Thanks. You, did great against Sakura too. That mind transfer stuff was cool. Too bad it ended in a draw. She rolled her eyes, half smiling. Can't believe we both got knocked out. At least I didn't lose. That's something. He slurped more noodles, feeling a bit of tension leaving his shoulders. Ino's presence had a way of grounding him, maybe because she was so straightforward, teasing him or supporting him without much filter. Any plans for the next month? She asked, stirring her bowl. You're still in the finals. Kinda jealous. Naruto sighed. I gotta find someone to train me. Kakashi-sensei's busy with Sasuke, so I'm on my own. Might try to level up my taijutsu and ninjutsu. Or maybe figure out new ways to control my special chakra. Ino tilted her head, curiosity piqued. Special chakra, huh? He stiffened. Careful, Naruto. He forced a laugh. Just some new techniques. Anyway, if I don't figure it out, that Hyuga jerk'll wipe the floor with me. She tapped her chopsticks thoughtfully. Maybe I can help. I'm no taijutsu master, but I can at least spar. Or we can ask Asuma-sensei for pointers on controlling large chakra flows. He's pretty chill. Surprise washed over Naruto. You'd do that? She shrugged, feigning nonchalance. Sure. You helped me out in the forest when I got pinned by that trap. A slight pink dusted her cheeks. Besides, I want to see you beat that cocky jerk, too. Naruto's grin spread. Genuine. Deal. We'll figure something out. A chance encounter. Night had fully settled by the time Naruto left Ichiraku. He felt a warm buzz of optimism. If he combined his demon power's destructive potential with better control, he might match Neji's Byakugan. Just gotta train like crazy. As he passed a dimly lit backstreet, a gust of wind rattled the overhead lanterns. Abruptly, 3 masked figures dropped down, blocking his path. Their faces were obscured by root masks, but he recognized the way they moved, calculated, silent. Danzo's operatives. Naruto's heart kicked into overdrive. Here we go. One stepped forward. Uzumaki Naruto. Danzo-sama requests your presence. Naruto's pulse roared in his ears. Yeah, well, Danzo can ask me himself if it's so important. The root ninja advanced, steps synchronized. Come quietly. Naruto's hand inched toward a kunai. Or what? Or we'll be forced to restrain you. Tension spiked. Naruto considered summoning clones or letting a sliver of demonic aura free. But causing a scene in the village wasn't wise. Still, he refused to let them drag him away without protest. He scowled, stepping back. You guys are sneaking around like criminals. The Hokage wouldn't be happy if he found out you tried to abduct me. The leader hesitated, but another hissed, the Hokage's illusions about you won't last forever. We only wish to ensure Konoha's safety from your unusual power. Naruto's gut twisted with anger. I'm not a threat to the village. I'd never. They lunged. Naruto sprang back, forming a quick shadow clone. The narrow street erupted in short chaos. He was no Jonin, but he was far from helpless. The demon aura stirred again, fueling a burst of speed and reflex. With a pivot, he evaded their grappling attempts. One root ninja hurled a binding wire net. Naruto ducked, ramming an enhanced punch that dented the cobblestones and forced them to scatter. Another flicked a paralyzing tag. Naruto's clone snatched it midair, letting it seal the clone instead of him. Poof! The clone vanished. In the swirl of confusion, Naruto leapt to a rooftop, glaring down. Tell Danzo to back off, he growled. I'm not some weapon he can pick up. They aimed kunai, but Naruto was already gone, bounding across the rooftops. Eventually, the root abandoned pursuit, melting into the shadows. Panting, Naruto cursed under his breath. He realized his fists were trembling both from age and from the aftertaste of that power stirring. This is getting worse. If Danzo was already sending watchers or abductors, how far would they go? The beginnings of a plan. Naruto ended up at the top of the Hokage monument, heart pounding as he gazed over Konoha's moonlit rooftops. The stone face of the fourth Hokage loomed beneath him, silent witness to his turmoil. The night breeze cooled the sweat on his brow. Damn it, he muttered. I won't let Danzo push me around. But if he keeps coming. A flicker of an idea. If I get stronger, really strong, maybe even the council or Danzo can't mess with me. And if the Hokage sees I can handle this demon power safely, they'll trust me more, right? He closed his eyes, recalling glimpses of that other life. Anos Voldigod, demon armies kneeling in subservience, entire realms bowing. The memory was distant, dreamlike, but he could still feel the absolute confidence thrumming in that figure's core. Maybe that confidence can be mine, too, without losing who I am in the process. His resolve hardened. I have 1 month. I'll push this demon power to a new level, show everyone I can harness it. Then I'll beat Neji, earn my place as a real candidate for Chunin. And no one will question me again. A grin tugged at his lips. That's what an unstoppable demon king would do, right? In the distance, storm clouds gathered on the horizon, thunder rumbling faintly. It felt like an omen. Great challenges lay ahead: training, Danzo's machinations, Orochimaru's plans, Gaara's monstrous aura, and the final tournament. But Naruto's spirit burned bright. He stood, the wind whipping at his hair, eyes glowing faintly with determination. Bring it on, he whispered to the silent village. I'm ready. Chapter end. To be continued.